Ready.
5 o'clock. Let's do it. So welcome. We'll call this Thursday, August 13th, Sylvania Board of Education meeting to order. If you'll call the roll, please, Lisa.
Vicki Donovan-Lyle.
Here.
Julie Hoffman.
Here.
Shannon Sapersky.
Here.
Ruslan Slitsky.
Here.
Greg Feller.
Here.
Say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have 4 individuals who have requested to participate in public participation this evening. We'll take them in alphabetical order. The first is a lack of planning for students on IEP and staff reductions for reading, math, music, and art at the elementary level. So we'll give Nicole Cassidy a call.
Hello.
Hey Nicole, this is Vicki Lyle calling from the Sylvania Board of Education.
Hi.
Hi there, we're calling you with regard to your request to speak to us tonight. If you can state your name and address for the record, that's what we always do when we have folks here with us live. So you can just provide your name and address so we have it recorded for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Sure. It's Nicole Cassidy, and the address is 4806 South Crest Ridge Road, Toledo 43623.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to comment at the board meeting tonight. I feel there has been a complete lack of communication and leadership from the administration about the red, orange, and yellow reopening plans for the upcoming school year. Parents and teachers are left in the dark about how each of these plans will work, and the administration is constantly changing what plan we are operating under without clear explanations to the community. The administration has had since June to fully develop these different plans and has failed to do so. I feel like students with disabilities like my daughter are being ignored by the administration. My daughter still does not have an intervention specialist assigned to her at this point in time. I cannot make an informed decision as to whether I should send my 9-year-old daughter with autism, who has a compromised immune system, to school under the various plans or just homeschool her. There are other parents who have students on IEPs and are still in the dark as I am. Everyone seems to keep focusing on sports and not on the education of our children. Now I have learned about the staff cuts to physical education, art, and music at the elementary schools to halftime. But the teachers are still expected to work and support all 400 students at their respective schools for half of the pay. Reading and math intervention specialists have been completely cut from 3 elementaries, which will not only impact our students on 504 and IEPs, but also the general student population that is struggling with reading and math. All of these cuts at the elementary level are detrimental to our children, as reading, math, gym, music, and art are the foundational building blocks that are built upon by junior high and high school educators. If you have to make cuts, then they need to be made at the administrative level before cutting what is important to our students. As a taxpayer and parent who moved to this district for the schools, I am appalled by the lack of leadership and its communication, and encourage both the board and the administration to please think of the children before they need proposed cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. We appreciate it. With regard to your inquiry on assignment of intervention specialist, you'll be hearing from Tim Zeroff, our assistant superintendent, so we make sure we're connecting the dots on that issue for you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Good night. Okay. Next up, we have Carol Lieber. She did not identify. Oh, please don't cut teachers' jobs. the Sylvania Board of Education.
Hi, Vicki. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you tonight?
I'm okay. I'm just leaving from carrying my son from the board building.
Okay. Is this a good time? Because we can put you at the end. If not, we have a couple other people, but otherwise,
No, this is fine.
very good. If you could just state your name and address, we do require that for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Okay, my name is Carol Weaver. I live at 7243 St. Robert's Lane in the St. James Wood subdivision in Sylvania Township.
Okay, and you wanted to
All
speak
right.
to us about teacher cuts?
Yes, I absolutely do. I am really so appalled and disheartened by what's happened in the last few days. And I'm saying this as someone who is a graduate of Sylvania High School, who has lived with my husband in the district for 30 years and put our 3 children through Sylvania schools and have nothing but the best feelings about Sylvania schools. And when I learned what was happening, and I will be honest, there's a lot of people I know personally who are being impacted by this, which makes it worse. I was really appalled that this district that I love so much would, at the very 11th hour, do this to students, do this to their parents, and do this to dedicated teachers. And for reasons that no one seems to be able to explain whatsoever. It's not like we failed the levy. I've never voted against the levy. I never would. I feel like from the standpoint of students, special teachers are the one constant through all of their elementary learning. So beyond the fact that I believe in the value of art, music, and PE, along with reading intervention, I believe in that from an educational standpoint. I also know that those teachers are constant in elementary students' lives. And I'm actually the mother of an art teacher in another district, so I know that this is the case. And with all the turmoil and all the insecurity that these children are living through, to take that constant and away from them, and to me, is just appalling and wrong. I also think that to treat our teachers like this so disrespectfully, if cuts were going to be made, why wasn't there talk about it before July when they had opportunities to find other positions? And now, the day before they're supposed to report, teachers with young children, mortgages, bills to pay, health insurance, are being told that their positions are being cut or halved or taken away. I think that is really a black eye on our whole district. It makes us look terrible, especially because I don't see other districts doing anything like this. And then finally, I think that there's no financial understanding for this, none whatsoever. So it just seems really arbitrary, and there's like an underhanded sense that people I've talked to have about our district doing something like this. We didn't fail a levy. We apparently have a surplus. People's lives are really in the balance here. And I just feel ashamed to be part of a community that would allow something like this in the 11th hour. The teachers that I know are still waiting. They're still left dangling, wondering, where do I go tomorrow? What's going to happen to me next week? And I don't see any justification to put anybody through that. I know this is a tumultuous time. I know that some people want to be open full-time, hybrid, reg. I'm not arguing about any of that. I'm going to trust the experts to make the decisions for the safety of our children and where they get their education. But what I'm talking about is the education that these kids get, that they deserve to have all their subject matter taught, and they deserve to have it taught by the teachers who are best prepared and in this district ready to teach them. Perfect example, I don't think that a high school health teacher should be able to be bumped by an elementary PE teacher who hasn't taught health before. Maybe he has the certification, but he hasn't taught it. When I know for a fact that the health teacher has spent a long time preparing a health curriculum at a time when teaching young people about health couldn't be more critical. And now, that's all going to be disrupted for no good reason.
I
These are all
appreciate,
my
thank you. We appreciate you sharing and taking the time to talk with us tonight. We have a couple other people additionally
Okay.
on the list, so I thank you very
Well,
much for your
I appreciate being
time.
heard.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Carol McElfresh wants to speak about cutting music, art, and PE.
I'll ask you for permission to address. Can I ask permission for you to, I would like to ask permission to respond once we're done about how those have been postponed, so we have it out there, but I need to ask your permission to respond.
Happy to have you respond.
It might make this easier, if people understood, what's already happening.
Exactly. 100% agree.
So,
We'll get through these people and then.
I was gonna say, but maybe if she did it beforehand, it would help them, so not right away.
If they're watching, yes, I
Oh, that's true.
100%.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Carol McElfresh.
Hi Carol, it's Vicki Lyle calling from Sylvania Schools.
Hi, Vicki. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. You had requested to speak to us in public participation on cutting music, art, and PE, so I think you probably recall the drill. If you can state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Okay, it's Carol McElfresh, 5347 Red Cliff Road in Sylvania.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Carol McElfresh. I am the former treasurer of the Sylvania Schools. As treasurer, I won a lot of awards for fiscal responsibility. I built the school buildings that you're enjoying today. And about 8 years ago, I became involved in an organization called Be Instrumental. And Be Instrumental was founded for the Toledo Public Schools cutting art in the schools. And so we wanted to do something to try to reach those low and moderate income children, to try to give them the opportunity to participate in the arts. So today we find ourselves in Sylvania and kind of in a financial situation where you're looking at the same thing. And what I would like to offer is the instrumental has been around for about 11 years, and we have some expertise in education and music. And I want to offer us as a partner with the Sylvania Schools. If we could participate as a cooperative effort between some art associations, some health associations, and these music associations, I think that we can do some innovative things, try to bring in some funds to the school district to support the arts, and just work as a collaboration, thinking outside the box.
I very much appreciate it, and our new superintendent, Dr. Motley, we'll be happy to speak with you about an opportunity to partner with us, because all of what you're saying sounds wonderful. I love to think outside the box, and you can expect to hear from Veronica.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vicki. Thank you, board members. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the call. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
President, Donovan Lyle, if I may address some of the public comments that have been made, if I have your permission, please.
Absolutely.
I would like to share with the folks that are here with us tonight and listening online. First of all, thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it because you are demonstrating that you want the most recent and up-to-date information in regards to how our schools will look in the very near future. But with that said, I know a couple of the phone calls have addressed cuts or potential cuts or proposed cuts in teachers. And I would like to make mention, and for those out in the field to know, that at this juncture, no cuts have been made, no rifts are taking place, and we have tabled that topic until future notice. So at this point in time, all folks are held harmless. All teachers are to report to their buildings tomorrow, and we will have further discussions if necessary in the future of what that may or may not look like. So I just wanted to make sure that our families and our community members are aware that we have pressed pause on any of those decisions at this point in time. I just thought it was important. I try not to disrupt your meeting, but I just wanted to make sure folks were aware.
And it's critical, I think, that is communicated very clearly for everybody, all rifts.
Is that the first round and the second round?
That is correct.
Okay.
Everything on pause, nothing moving
Everything
forward.
is on pause, nothing moving forward. All staff members should report to work tomorrow as they would until we are able to seek some clarification, further discussion, and make sure that we proceed cautiously and thoughtfully.
Very good, thank you. And with that, we do have one more community member. Steve Ursel is going to speak to us about teachers' jobs being eliminated, but if he's not watching, we can provide the update on where we stand with that.
Hello?
Steve?
Yes.
Hi, this is Vicki Lyle calling from Sylvania Schools.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, and you?
Not too bad.
So we're calling, you had requested to address us on public participation, and we certainly want to hear whatever you have to share with us. I see on here you're talking about job elimination, so I just want to, in case you aren't watching us or listening online, to make sure that you're aware that at this point no reductions in force are going forward. Dr. Motley just shared that update with the board. So if you have some comments you'd like to make still, we're happy to entertain any comments or participation you'd like to share with us. But as far as jobs being eliminated at this point, there are no reductions in force going forward at this point.
Okay, well, that kind of answers my question, which was if we go back to being in the yellow hybrid, where do we get the teachers from if they already have jobs or they don't want to come back? So I'm very glad to hear that there's been no reductions.
Yes. So if you're all good with that, we will go on about our meeting.
All right, fabulous. Thank you. Thank you so much for the board and all your time.
You are welcome. Thank you. We appreciate the acknowledgement. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, and with that, with our apologies on the delay, but we air purifier presentation and ready to go.
Thank you. This is item 3.1 on our board agenda this evening. We have Ms. Amy Jackson here. She is going to share a presentation in regards to an air purifying system that may help improve the ventilation in our buildings and air circulation in our buildings. I would like to say Amy is kind enough to share this information with us tonight. She is actually a parent in the district, and I want to be very clear to let everyone know that she's trying to contribute to our learning environments here in the Sylvania schools. She is not a salesperson for this company. She is not a sales representative. She is not associated with the company in any shape or form. However, Amy is going to share a piece of equipment that came her way and will educate us a little bit about it. And then at the conclusion of her presentation, Mr. Lyons has also secured some additional information regarding the same unit. So with that, thank you, Ms. Jackson, for being here this evening. I'll turn over the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Motley. Thank you so much to the board for having me and administration. It means so much, and I really appreciate your receptivity to this information and to your commitment to our school system. I titled discussion, because it is about air quality and air ventilation. But not only in regards to COVID, but just into the health of the buildings for the students as well. I thought I may start even with a quote from L. Frank Baum, who's the author of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, who had a great quote, and I think is very relevant on many realms right now, that says, "Whenever I feel blue, I just start breathing again." And I think that's very, very important about just the importance of air for life, the ramifications of air when it's not conducive for life, and then just for the current state of things, how helpful breathing can be. And so I do, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, as Dr. Motley did say, I am have been with ProMedica Health System as a physical therapist. I'm a wife and a mom of two central trail cubs, and I enjoy serving on our evidence-based practice team as well at ProMedica. As Dr. Motley said, I have no conflicts of interest. The information is not linked to ProMedica Health Systems at all that I'm presenting tonight, and no financial disclosures for this presentation either. So just really in threefold, looking at, in regards to COVID also, but another kind of large issue or problem for students across the nation, and that is asthma, and how it relates at times to disinfectants. So we're going to take a quick look at the prevalence of asthma in school-age children and its ramifications on not only their health, but also their scholastic well-being as well. We're going to look at the American Academy of Pediatrics, or AAP's, recommendations in regards to disinfecting, because we know it's going to be so important with COVID to be disinfecting as we have been, if not more, and what their recommendations are in that manner. And then also, of course, as Dr. Motley said, looking at potential for air purification systems to really assist in this situation to reduce airborne threats to staff, not only potentially helping to reduce airborne COVID-19 particles, but also other illnesses that are airborne as well that have been around well before COVID and will persist well past or maybe alongside COVID. So some of the interesting numbers that really paint a picture on how big a problem asthma is in our children across the nation is that the number, per the CDC, the number of children under the age of 18 who currently have asthma is 5.5 billion, and that number continues to grow. The number of physician office visits, when someone comes to see the doctor and that's the primary reason they're at the visit that day with adults and children in the United States, is 9.8 million. So kiddos with asthma tend to grow up into adults with asthma. And the number of emergency department visits with asthma as a primary diagnosis is 1.6 million. So this is a pretty prevalent issue that affects people's health as well as their well-being in school. Another document that we're going to examine here that also discusses the importance of the air purifiers, but also looks at the overall health of the building as it reflects in the student, is through the Schools for Health, Harvard THGN, School for Public Health. So they created a document. It's a pretty large, meaty document that I have referenced and have made available as well. And it discusses, it looks like kind of three pillars as how they relate to the student health overall in regards to the building. So it looks at the student's health itself, how that impacts thinking, and then overall that student's performance. So the first part of this big meaty document that encompasses safe return to school in a building starts primarily with discussing asthma. And a staggering number is that 13.8 million missed school days each year occur because of asthma. Again, as we can understand that increased absenteeism yields reduced test scores and may reflect not necessarily what they are or aren't learning, but their ability to process what they're learning and to take in that learning because of those health ramifications. We also need to remember that schools are the environment that children spend the most time in outside of their own home. So the environment that they're in is so important. And that educational employees are also of most importance. And they too have the highest proportion of work-related asthma cases in the United States. Teachers themselves have the highest prevalence of asthma compared to other workers in non-industrial occupational groups. And at this point, I'd like to say I was so grateful when I met with Mr. Limes and the other staff, Ms. Watson and Mr. Shaney, and we were discussing these things. And we'll get into this later, but many of the things recommended in this Harvard report, Sylvania Schools is already doing. They're recognizing it and taking steps towards. And as a parent, I was so relieved to hear those things and so grateful for that, and we'll go into those specifics shortly. So again, real briefly, when we talk about asthma, many people are aware that asthma attacks and increased irritation from asthma is triggered from many different things. It can be from, house dust mites, pests, animal dander, and then of course infections of the airway. Things that are even a little bit more controllable, especially in our environment. Thankfully, we don't worry about cigarette smoke in classrooms these days. That was different years ago, right? Air pollution, climate, air changes. But one of the biggest things that we'll go into and how it ties into the air purifiers as well are odors, fragrances, and you can see here volatile organic compounds that can be found in sprays and disinfectants. Many of you may know these as called VOCs. Other causes for asthma exacerbation, exercise-induced asthma, and one none of us have to worry about right now is stress. You can check that off the list, right? So, what are VOCs? So, per the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, VOCs are gases, are emitted gases from certain liquids and solids. They can cause long and short-term health ramifications. So, short-term irritations, but also long-term health issues as well. Concentrations of these, as rightfully so, are typically higher indoors than outdoors, and again, that's a ventilation issue. And they're emitted by a wide array of products, literally products in the thousands, and especially cleaning supplies, but other things you might not be so aware of that we'll go over shortly. So some of these things, it's an extensive list, but things that we inevitably will come in contact with, even though the best we do. I like to use the words progress versus perfection. We are going to come across VOCs in our offices we visit, in our schools, in our homes. But again, some of the things that we can't control are the type of cleaning products that we're using in the schools for our students, as recommended by the AAP and EPA. So again, things like the carpet, the glue that holds the carpet down, new paint, which is great in our newer areas, but again creates more VOCs. Dry erase markers, things that we're going to use all the time. These can be triggers for asthma and other health issues. So again, not to berate this issue, but again, these health issues that can be a result of VOCs are pretty extensive. And to bring about, as we eventually, when it's deemed safe, return to school alongside COVID, it's going to be tough if we're confounding some of these symptoms that could be exacerbated by some of the cleaning things we're using. So coughs, runny noses, nose and throat irritation, things that we're going to be on a little bit high guard about, and if we're kind of adding to that issue with things that we could control, but could potentially be a little bit more mitigated by, say, an air purifier and safer disinfectants, I think that would be, a great choice to help reduce those confounding things we're going to be watching out for. But again, this list is pretty extensive. Eventual organ damage, typically irritation is the first thing you see, but nausea, vomiting, fatigue, dizziness, these are all real things that can occur depending on your level of VOC exposure. And these can be cumulative too, so it's not just a one-time exposure. We are cumulatively being exposed to these things. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has put out, again, another meaty document that I'm sure you're all aware of and the schools are working with that explain a safe and recommended return to school based on their organization, which is obviously highly regarded. There is a portion in that, which again I cited, that discusses in particular disinfectants and how they should and should not be used. The talk of dwell time, personal protective equipment, and proper ventilation are significantly highlighted. When we think about some of the, and we'll talk about it in a minute, more toxic or less recommended disinfectants, their dwell time is not efficient. So the fact that they're less safe, they're also less efficient. So for a typical Clorox wipe, which we'll talk about later, a quaternary one with ammonium in it, that needs to sit on a surface for 10 minutes to be deemed effective, whereas some of the safer ones listed for the EPA on the safer list N are 1 minute. Still needing to use gloves, still needing to provide adequate ventilation, still not having the students participate, which we'll go over shortly, but a quicker kill time and safer. So these are things that are kind of the silver lining when we look at safer. So again, the EPA created a list of disinfectants that are around 300 that are safe, that are adequate in killing COVID. From that list, there is the AAP supported list. So it's a subset of this list N that are safe, that are adequate in killing COVID, yet safe and are non-carcinogenic and non-provocative of asthma-type symptoms and triggers. And again, going back to our meeting with Mr. Lyons and Ms. Watson and Mr. Sheamy, when I spoke with Ms. Watson and head of custodial, is my understanding, it was so exciting to hear, and we'll talk about bleach, that she said years ago she recognized the threat of bleach around children, and that she said we're not going to use that. So as a parent with children in the school system, I was so grateful to hear that, and I think everyone knowing that, I think that's a really great piece of information as we maybe feel a little intimidated. I know I have about going back and knowing that the disinfectants are going to need to happen, but knowing that we're on that path to safer. She also did say that some of the safer items, so they talk about the EPA safer list and advocates the active ingredients being only hydrogen peroxide or ethanol or citric acid. They do not recommend the quaternary ones that come into the category with bleach and ammonium. Those are the ones that are toxic and carcinogenic and proven to be so. And she did say that the disinfectants that are used, and I don't want to misquote her, but she seemed to be aware of this and they are using those in the schools, which was extremely exciting to hear and very reassuring, and I thought that was important to share. So moving on with this. The last piece there that I didn't want to overlook is the other harmful thing about many of these disinfectants is that they can cause reproductive harm. And so many of our teachers are of childbearing age and maybe pregnant or looking to become pregnant. So this is a very important step to protect the teachers and the staff of your buildings. They have found, and this is cited in fact, that when women have children, often they've looked at the cord blood of the placenta when the children are born, and sometimes and often over 200 chemicals are already found in that cord blood before the child even enters our world. So when we're talking about the safety of these things, air purification is certainly on there. It's going to help with this. It's a very important topic that many of us don't know about. I like to say we don't know until we know. So when we talk about kids, it's like we're going to have a day very different than usual. I know in the clinic I work in with the physical therapy, in the physical therapy clinic with my patients, my day is different now, as it has to be with disinfecting and the way we do it. But we're able to do it. And so when we look at efficiency, when we look at that with children, we have to remember what the AAP is recommending. And that is that they should not be present when these disinfectants are in use. Ideally, and they absolutely should not participate in that disinfecting. Their hand-to-mouth habits provide a lot of toxicity, and not even that. I mean, thank goodness, from the world of masks, hopefully that's a silver lining that will reduce that. But we do absorb those chemicals, and that is also reported for the AAP. So if they were to touch a Clorox wipe, even a safer one with the hydrogen peroxide, they can absorb that into their system, and they do. And so the AAP states it absolutely should not be part of wiping down their desk. They should not be part of that process, which is interesting information, but factual. And again, we talked about that. And it's going to happen, disinfecting has to happen. Say there's an event that needs cleaned up and the kids are in the classroom. If that is to happen, it should absolutely be with those safer products. Ventilation should be happening, whether that be opening a window, using if decided upon the air purifier, and really making every effort to maximize that ventilation when the disinfecting is occurring if the children happen to be around when it's happening. And we talked again about the bleach and containing quaternary ammonium compounds or quats that should not be used really at all around children. And when you look at it, it's right on the label when you look at your cleaning supplies. It's interesting, it's in most. So these are some things that we probably don't need to go over that I'm confident, especially from our meetings that are already taking place, but just some basic recommendations also from the American Academy of Pediatrics of reducing high-touch surfaces, keeping doors open when possible so that they're not touching them and going in and out. And equipment, we've already established that a lot of shared equipment is not going to happen, which is fantastic. But if it is, talking about how and when that's disinfected. Again, outdoor play areas, when you learn about that, it basically discusses routine cleaning, however, except for the high-touch areas. So, you know, the swings, the handles, the things that children will touch to climb on and pull themselves up on. They are advocating frequent disinfecting of those things, again with the safer recommendations. These we won't go through, but these are the list of the safer choices on that list N. So again, the list N is not the safe list, the subset of this list N is. Again, recommended and supported by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP. As a consumer, I thought, how easy is it to get these? So I just kind of did an Amazon search. None of us use Amazon. But I did do an Amazon search, and I was able to find some of these readily available. And I'm sure, I don't want to say I'm sure, but I would think that even under a ordering system such as a school or health system, that would be even a little bit more of a direct ordering system. I can't speak to that for sure, but in just kind of checking, some of these were available on this list. Clorox does make the hydrogen peroxide recommended white. So if it's hydrogen peroxide versus the quaternary, that's okay. For the AAP, not for me. Oxivir are the wipes we use in our clinic. And these are just more of these, and again, they're in the presentation. The registration number, everything is in here, and their kill time, and again, with these safer ones, the kill time is significantly less than the more toxic ones or the toxic ones with the quats in them. And again, another one there. So again, in disinfection, before we get into the air purification, I think we understand this EPA safer subset list of list N is consistent with AAP recommendations. Shorter contact times, more efficient. Reducing asthma triggers for student and staff is both very important, as we saw earlier. And we don't want to forget about our custodial staff, the folks that are handling things these items the most. They are so important as well. It's not only the right thing to do to protect each other. From a business model, collectively $25 million in lost time and workers' compensation per year in the United States was recorded because of an accidental exposure through accidental inhalation, ingestion, or absorbed chemicals through the skin. So again, another very important aspect. So moving into the healthy building through the Harvard document for safe schools, it's founded around 9 pillars that you'll see here. We'll focus on ventilation and air quality. And it was really great to talk to Mr. Langs at the meeting. Again, very refreshing to hear. This is something they're very aware of, working towards. It's living in Ohio. We love to talk about the weather in Ohio, right? Because it's so unpredictable. And when you go to remedy one thing, you open a window, you increase moisture, which can create mold, and then it's this vicious cycle. So they're already working, is my understanding, in the schools to look at CO2 amounts and the things that impact air ventilation and air quality. So these things are already being addressed, and to a degree much higher than I'm aware of, I'm sure. So again, back to that Harvard Health document and the pillar of student health, again looking at CO2 levels and ventilation, they found when there was poor air circulation and ventilation, again not CO2 poisoning, that's a different story, but CO2 higher levels in the classroom, understandably so. In the studies, the students reported feeling fatigued, not as good concentration, and poorer test scores. And multiple studies do support, especially, and even one from the Centers for Disease Control, that when steps are taken to mitigate, again, not perfection, but to mitigate the IEQ or indoor environmental quality, that students' test scores do go up. So again, it's a health issue, it's also a performance issue. So again, when we talk about, well, what do we do? There's lots of things we can do. Some are very costly, some are not, but most are very costly. One of the most tangible things on that list are portable air cleaners. And I would like to echo, it was interesting watching Governor DeWine's presentation. He had 3 pediatricians on from some of the highest reputable children's hospital in our nation, happened to be in Ohio, which is fantastic. And the attending physician from Cincinnati Children kind of hit hard on 5 pillars for safe return to school. That Sylvania Schools is obviously paying attention to all of those, which was again very reassuring as a parent in all the unknowns. In a hierarchy from most important and down, all of them are important. It was masking, followed by distancing, followed by hand hygiene, followed by disinfecting, followed by air ventilation. And we have those covered. I mean, those are all being addressed, it appears, at the school level when it's deemed safe to go back. So I'm excited to kind of present about the possibilities on how air filters and air filtration can, air purifiers can be of assistance within those 5 pillars recommended. So one of them, again, we talked about one of the more feasible remedies from that decision tree listed from that Harvard document. Again, when we talk about it, so COVID is so new. So I want to be clear when we say, to my knowledge, the studies looking at, does this eradicate COVID in a classroom? We know that the size, from what they currently think of aerosolized COVID, not just droplets, but aerosolized COVID, is able to be trapped in these air filters with medical grade HEPA. The Austin air purifier, which was recommended to me by someone in the medical community that's an epidemiologist and does a lot of research in this area, is supposed to be very high on this list of ones that can do that. So they haven't been able to do the studies of looking at children in a classroom with the air purifier versus not a purifier and who had an infection or not. But we know when we look at air particles, we know that they can be trapped. The COVID-19 air particles, from what we know now, can be trapped in this air filter, and we know they can assist with that. There are studies that we saw earlier that support the reduction of asthma. These will pull out the VOCs in the air that are going to come with the disinfectants that are necessary with the COVID situation and just normal processes in school. And again, the normal things found in the paint, the carpet, etc. So again, they're very beneficial. They were beneficial before COVID and will continue to be beneficial. And again, from a safety perspective, I mean, knowing that there's that extra layer of protection, or at least attempted protection, going along with those 5 pillars recommended by many of the physicians, I think is a benefit as well. We've talked about this here. So when we talk about how it does this, how can it prevent it? It's thought that when we trap those particles, there are less of potentially less COVID-19 air particles in the air. And a lot of the emerging research is saying that to reduce that is helpful. You potentially reduce your exposure. And then when we talk about viral load, which many may be familiar with, there's a lot of emerging evidence that states when you are exposed to COVID, the amount of the virus you're exposed to can determine if you contract COVID and how severely you contract COVID. So if anything, potentially based on what we know and what air purifiers can do and the size of COVID and how it's acting as of now, it is reasonable and stated through these air purification companies that you could potentially reduce the viral load, which could, again, impact if the disease is contracted potentially and how severe it is. So again, I think that is something tangible and powerful. Again, I have a lot of information and I'm happy to answer questions, and it sounds like your group has also done additional research, so I'm happy to help to as much knowledge as I have. But in looking at these compared to others, and I'm not here to push this one, but I do feel confident in this recommendation from what I've learned so far, is that the large inner filter is replaced every 5 years, which is unique, and my understanding is to this unit. When you talk about air purifiers and you look at them and compare them to other air purifiers, there's a lot of buzzwords that go along with air purifiers, is my understanding. So CADR is a rating that talks about the change in airflow and the speed. It doesn't necessarily reflect the efficacy or the amount of air purification happening, so being careful to look at that. The settings, the lowest setting is the speed of how the air is purified. So the lower setting, that turnaround is slower. The higher the setting that you go, the faster that air purification occurs. So my understanding with this Austin air purifier is that the lowest setting, the sound produced is about 50 decibels, which is equivalent to the sound of your refrigerator when it's running, depending on your refrigerator, I suppose. My understanding is the energy expanded with these air purifiers is that less than some light bulbs, probably dependent on the light bulb. But that's my understanding. And then as you turn it up, which is a very easy switch, it ramps up. It does get louder, but it can run when people are not in the building safely, is my understanding. They put safety at a very high priority, is my understanding with this unit. So not overheating, it can run when you're not there. So say the children potentially go out to recess, turn it up to 3, they come back, turn it down to 1. So that's kind of what I envisioned as I was thinking about this, but of course, you know, there's probably a lot of other things to think about as well. And they are made in the United States, so availability, when we think about that, is going to be better than some of the other ones, is my understanding, that are made overseas. So that is really the information I have. These are my references and resources, and I have printed a lot for you there and can get you anything else you would like. And I really love to answer any questions you may have. And again, just I thank you so much for allowing me to be here and for sharing this information. I really do appreciate it and appreciate all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't want to pepper you with questions.
Sure,
because
I don't mind.
work for them, so.
Right, I don't, but I can do my best.
Right, so I saw in there it said like it may, filter out COVID.
Yes.
And I would assume, and I'm a lawyer, I'm not scientific.
Oh, good.
But I would assume you said, like, to purify the air, like, if you run it on the higher, number 3 when the kids aren't in the room, wouldn't it be most effective to because it's like if I sneeze or I cough and I'm putting particles out in the air, isn't that when we really want to clean it?
Yes, my understanding is yes. And when I say, I mean, the company, and when I talked to them, and then when I researched how air purifiers work, the size of COVID and how the air filters, they are confident it will trap the particles. They are confident it will trap them. It depends when they trap it, because my understanding is when you are in a room, the room is, because there's an air purifier present, doesn't mean that the room is completely, absolutely void of COVID particles. It means that it's helping pull those out and put pure air in, which is very beneficial, but it depends. If somebody comes and sneezes in your face, the air
Right.
purifier is likely.
It's not going to jump over it.
Right. I mean, which is important to understand.
I would just want to sit next to the air purifier.
Yeah. Maybe it could be a lottery system. But yeah, so your question's correct. And yeah, ideally, and the only reason you wouldn't, maybe some people would put it on 3, potentially could be that it's a little noisier. I haven't heard it.
Right, noisier when we're going to have, students and teachers with
Yes.
masks on, so it's already it's challenging to understand each other when we
Yes.
have masks on, especially for younger children. So,
Yes.
and as a lawyer, I do have to say, like, I noticed that it may
Yes.
take care of COVID. So,
Yes.
see, may to a lawyer is
Sure.
like, you left a lot of room for, because we
Well,
say shall or will
yes.
or probably, but
Yes.
may leaves
And-
a lot of room for it may not.
Yes, well, and to clarify, and I appreciate that, and I do want to be transparent with that, but I'm not going to stand here and tell everybody, as a parent that's done research that it's going to do that. That evidence is emerging. But I will say that company and HEPA filters in general do trap particles the size of COVID. So to assume, if we know what size COVID is, which that's pretty, to my understanding, a pretty good understanding. Again, we've gone from droplet to aerosolized. And when you look at the idea of what size aerosolized is, that's where that gray area is that I cannot stand here and qualify. But from the understanding, it's a 1 micron in 2, and I wrote this down. I will check my notes. I'm not too proud to do that.
We're going to say 1 micron, I don't really know.
And I didn't either. So 1 micron, for example, is 1 micrometer. It's 1/1,000,000th of a meter, or 1,000 microns. There are 1,000 microns in a millimeter and 10,000 microns in a centimeter. So they're small. and it's saying it will trap particles that size, and COVID happens to be in that size.
Right, no, and I get it. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, you have a classroom, you have 20 kids, and somebody, the air purifier's up there, and the kid in the back is sneezing and coughing.
Yes.
I mean, it's not really giving a lot of protection from that. Like, I agree on, we should purify air, for all the other reasons, but I'm not so sure that it's gonna really give the protection, that we're looking for, with immediacy on COVID, because we're all so scared,
Right. And I think,
the transmission.
I think it would be, I think it would be wonderful if it did.
Yeah,
and
we all have.
And I think when we look at those pillars, it would be in the hierarchy, it would be the first, but masking is the first.
Right, and it's
that's
the last. It's the last in the hierarchy, right?
But it's still in the hierarchy.
Yes, it is.
Yep, and it's highly recommended.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, because this might put a little more Sylvania information to it. So our classrooms are typical, not, to the a survey of all the classrooms, basically. Our typical classroom is 800 square feet. And the ceiling heights are 10 feet. Again, typical. So that's 8,000 cubic feet of air. So in a classroom, these filters would change the air completely twice in an hour. 32 minutes technically, but about twice in an hour. So if that helps you put some relevance to how much does it filter.
Okay, so it is that if it's on 3?
I don't know the answer to that one, Julie.
Because I would assume that it would have to be on 3 to do that, because they're gonna give you the best statistics for that. So I'm assuming if it's on 1, then is it, I mean,
Yeah.
then is it once every 2 hours?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. And again, this is just my farmer knowledge, but it could be just, the fan speed could be just, not necessarily the filter speed, but the circulation part. Meaning you're moving more air, changing one corner of the room to the other more. I don't know for sure, but,
Okay, but then let me ask you, I'm not gonna ask you.
Please, yeah, hey.
Because I spoke up, so now I'm gonna.
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm just telling you the size of our rooms and what we.
Right, and I get it, but then here's another question, like, we have pretty significant HVAC issues in many of our buildings and many of our rooms. Like, it's
Correct.
pretty common at this time of the year that we're talking about teachers going into rooms where there's mold on their books and so we need purifiers for that reason, but our HVAC systems are terrible, so I don't know how much this can compete. I mean, we already have that going on, so.
Yeah, so again, we do have a few of these, not necessarily this brand, but we do have a few air purifiers in different locations where we've had issues. It has helped the air quality in the room. Whiteford is one of the examples where we have some. So, you know, it's going to help all year round, even during like flu season and stuff. It's helping with those things.
Yeah, I know
but,
it's probably great. I mean, I'm just saying, like, right now when we're looking for immediacy of like dealing with COVID,
Right.
this is a large amount of money to spend
I don't
to
disagree.
give us a false sense of security if it's not really gonna, address the COVID issue. Like, overall, I think they're a great idea, and like, I don't put carpet in my house. I mean, I did once, but I'm really scared because how off gas
Sure.
is, and
Yeah.
like if your kids are breathing in, those things are frightening. So I get all that, but I mean, for what we're looking for right now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if we're looking for, give us some sense of security of protecting our
Right,
staff and our
and
students.
one of the things that Alan wasn't able to be here tonight, but one of the other items he's looking at is ionization systems. And so he's been talking, or is talking with Train's getting some of that kind of information to us. The downside of some of the ionization, some of the other type things is that they produce ozone, which is not, those, so there's a downside to many of these other products as well. So we are investigating that stuff. Alan's asked Train to give us recommendations on whether or not we currently have MERV 11 air filters, and I think Ruslan, you asked about the AMC theaters or whatever. One of the changes they had for opening up is they went from MERV 11s to MERV 13s. We currently have 11s, and they thought, without looking at it, we have some systems that we could change to 13s, but not necessarily all the systems because of what the system is. And the other thing about some of the ionization, thank you, is a lot of those are designed for like rooftop units and not univent units like what we have. So there's some of those things that we have to deal with when we're investigating. But we are looking into those things. Just to give you an idea of what this is, we did the math. We gave you rough numbers last year. We went through all the floor plans. We have 580 classrooms. I think we said last week we had about 500, so we were fairly close. And when I say classrooms, those include staff workrooms and the media centers. Those are included in that 580. We have 14 cafeteria areas, so we need to figure those in, and about 88 offices. The offices, we could probably get by with the smaller units, but we just figured to get a number.
Depends
So,
on the office and what building.
yeah, so we would need 682 units right now, you know, to do our district. That's a lot. Do the math for that.
And Keith,
Yes, go ahead.
can I ask, and I'm assuming that would be more for areas like gymnasiums and cafeterias, correct?
Yes.
So are those numbers included in that, or those are just classrooms?
I think they're just classrooms. I don't think that included those
Large
giant
group
spaces.
areas,
Yes,
okay.
I don't think it did. So we're looking at, the number we got right now, the quote we got was for 400, they sell for $595. I'll give you the good news. $595, and we were able to get a quote for $446.25 for a total of $304,342.50.
That's better than the $500,000 that I was looking at on the
Right,
internet.
right, yeah, exactly.
That was straight
So,
from the internet.
and basically, we'd have some shipping and stuff, so we estimated about 309,000.
But that's not including, like, she said, like, the larger areas, like gymnasiums, theaters,
Yeah,
auditoriums.
I'm pretty sure it does not, and I can confirm that.
So a little,
Later, but-
so it'd be safer to say somewhere under 400,000.
Yes, yeah.
Better than the
And some of the, and most of those units have like rooftop models, which could be, you know, other filters or, I say, you know, those other types for bigger areas like that. So, the filters, it does say, that said on the presentation, every 5 years. And talking with the people from Austin, they really recommend every 3 years for that. The warranty is for 5 years, but they recommend doing it every 3 years. And to do that, it's, we estimated they're $144, as opposed to, if you do it at 5 years, they're $240. If you do it at 3 years, they're $144.
So they prorate it.
Yeah, yes. So, so $98,208 every 3 years is what we estimated for a replacement for filters.
And do we know what the increased cost, like, for utilities if we're running these at all?
Good question. The electrical, they're 120, so they plug into the regular plug, so we don't have to do any additional electrical work. They only draw 1.2 amps, which is very, very little, like a light bulb or less. So that's good. And some of these things, that their capacity is 250 CFM for 1,500 square foot. So that's pretty impressive if you know anything about that stuff. So we would not need, they actually make a step above. They make a HealthMate Plus. But
That's the one that offers the VOC protection. So that's the one that will pull the VOCs out of the air.
okay,
The HealthMate Plus.
we didn't catch that part. So that number could be slightly higher.
Right.
Okay.
How many rooms are there again?
My understanding was $500 a unit after the discount. Yeah, so
That's the one I.
Okay, so it's
For
$500 after
Yeah,
the
because
discount.
if we're gonna do
That's
this,
the one.
why wouldn't we do it where it pulls out the VOC?
that's what
Right.
I
Yeah,
recommend.
yeah.
So those numbers at 500 were, Alan had that was Alan's original figure. It was 341,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, there's probably some shipping on there, but.
And with all due respect, I think that offers such a huge benefit. I mean, just for overall health, for all the reasons we talked about. Again, that's your decision, absolutely. But in making a decision like this, personally, I mean, I think for what you're trying to do with it, it would be remiss to not
Yeah,
pull out the VOCs, because those are so huge with asthma triggers and all the things we talked about, plus COVID.
I mean, for me, I think the biggest part of having those units would be, because of the viral load, that it would just be refreshing the air so much more frequently. Obviously, it's not gonna help if somebody sneezes in your face, but, which is gonna happen. But, you know, just to get that whole air purification every so often would be at least something.
It's kind of giving you a chance, is how I feel about it.
Yeah.
In reading some of the literature in support of it, especially even supported by the Harvard document, because it's still evolving literature, I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not coming, but it said basically you shouldn't not use something that you have available because it's, you know, in process, because there are things that we know it can do and things that eventually will be likely proven it can do, that's forthcoming. But there were some reports that just supported it from that thought process as well.
So when these particles in the air, do they rise or do they sink to the floor?
So again, I will state, I don't want to represent myself as an expert. I will say I'm a research, avid research follower. So my understanding from that model, not being an expert in COVID by any means, or a physician, my understanding is when they aerosolize, the thought is, because they have these HEPA filters, again, or air purifiers with medical grade HEPA, primarily in dentist office across the board, because they're doing aerosolizing procedures. So large droplets typically, my understanding, will fall pretty quickly. The aerosolized particles will eventually fall, but the understanding of how far they go and how long they hang out to what capacity is what's mounting, and unfortunately we're finding out it's quite a darn while, like hours upon hours. So if you're pulling these out, and again from the research I've read, I'm not stating that, that's my understanding at this time, that's evolving quite quickly. So my understanding is they will hang out, depending how small they are, and eventually settle. They won't rise. They will all eventually fall. The smaller they are, the longer they will remain. So if you're circulating the air, even if it's at a lower capacity, you're at least trying to pull out what's hanging out to whatever capacity that is. I mean, they'll be able to answer that question better, the company and the logistics that way. But that's what they do.
I think it's also worth mentioning that all of our, because you mentioned HEPA filters several times, all of our vacuum cleaners that we use in the district they're all that great HEPA, that great HEPA filters. And
That's fantastic.
So it's good stuff.
Well, thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank
for
you
your
all so much.
presentation.
I
I
appreciate
would
it.
like to say personally, as a person who's only been in the district about 2 weeks tomorrow, I've learned a lot about our supplies, and I am thrilled to learn and know that our folks here in Sylvania have already taken steps in order to make sure they are using the right supplies to keep our students more safe. So thank you so much. I learned something from this other than the opportunities that we may have to implement some air filtration systems. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the board does too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Please.
So when the time comes.
Yes.
Hopefully sooner rather than later, when
Right.
it's not a pandemic.
Right.
My understanding from what I see on the website, this can still provide a lot of support for kids with respiratory issues in a non-COVID situation.
Absolutely. And that's, to me, when I was thinking of this, truly to piggyback, and I almost forgot to mention, as a parent, seeing the awesome technology that we have within our school system of the cleaning systems we have, which my understanding is unique to our system, I thought great, but I was also very intimidated and a little nervous about what I saw, and I was happy to hear that those cleaners being used are in that safer end. But on top of that, the fact that they have been being used, they're going to continue to be used, and the ability for them to pull those out, plus during cold and flu season, chicken pox has occurred. You know what I mean? And it is supported in the literature, and we know at this point it does mitigate those things or assist in mitigating those things. So that in itself, flu is deadly too. And if it can assist with that, that's wonderful. That can decimate a classroom as well. So if you're doing something for that, we know that that's happening already.
Thank you.
Sure, thank
Appreciate
you.
it so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Are the teachers, and are they gonna be able to open windows for increased ventilation? I know we have some humidity issues, do you know?
Some I think I shouldn't say all buildings, because I'm not sure if all of them can, but most buildings. Opening windows really messes with the system itself. And for lots of reasons, the humidity levels and all that kind of stuff, but and so the systems work best if the windows are closed, but we also recognize that we may have to do some of those kinds of things, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think now it's important to have windows.
Yeah, I
Because
do.
we have buildings where we have classrooms with no windows.
Correct, yeah, we have some classrooms that, just don't have that ability, but most of them do.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Would you like to lead discussion as far as it relates to what you've heard?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Going into the next item for tonight is item 4.1. I would like to recommend that we hold a discussion in regards to our remote learning plan, as well as the duration of our remote learning plan and what the beginning days of school will look like. I do know for folks that are tuning in, this is something that has been on your mind and close to your heart. And tonight I would like to have a discussion with our board members, or facilitate a discussion in regards to some potential reopening plans. I would like to say ahead of time, for those who are listening and tuning in, I have provided the board with a number of options, I believe 9 different options. I was working on them this morning and this afternoon. I will say some may repeat a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we are doing our due diligence to look at all the options that are available to begin the school year. But most importantly, I have 3 major options that I would like the board to at least hold a discussion on tonight in regards to how we begin school, and for your consideration. First of all, the first option, and I should say all 3 options that I would like to discuss tonight, really look at starting school remotely for the first 2 weeks of school. So it would be August 31st through September 11th, which is a 2-week period that we would begin school remotely for all students K-12. The next step is where we really need to delineate what this can look like for our students here in Sylvania. Do we feel comfortable with starting with elementary? It's easier to go chunk it by grade levels. If we feel comfortable with elementary going from a remote start to level green, which means all day, every day, that is an option. I would say the grade levels from, that would be K-5, and grade levels 6 through 12 would attend school in a hybrid model. So again, remote start for all students. K-5 goes to green, which means all day, every day, with 6 through 12 going in a hybrid model. Option B would look at, again, a remote start, or another option, I should say. Another option would be everyone begins remote start. Then after 2 weeks, we could potentially have our students go hybrid 6 through 12. I'm not going in order because they're in my head, so I apologize if you're following on the sheet. And then at the end of this month, have our 6 through 12 students go green. The final option would be everyone starts remote start, and again, all students go hybrid, and then the final week of September move to a green plan. So those are the 3 contingents, or the 3 options that I would like us to discuss. Now I will tell you, as educator for the past 30 years, I really want the community to understand, and I want our board to recognize that I truly think it's important that our elementary students return to the classroom as soon as possible. And there's for many reasons, but first and foremost, those are the formative education years. We have students who will be coming into the classroom for the very first time, some who have had the benefit of being in preschool, others who have not. I will tell you, it is difficult to teach a child to learn how to read in a virtual environment. And those are the foundational skills. And as a professional educator, my concern is we are increasing the academic gap for those children that will be very difficult to make up over time. My goal would be to get those children in the classroom as soon as possible. But I also recognize that for our parents and for those of you around the table tonight, going from a strictly remote learning plan and jumping into green right away may make you feel uncomfortable. So my goal would be then, if that is the case, and I'm giving you things to think about, and then I'll let you talk. But I'm trying to at least give you considerations, because it's more than just the plan and options. It's really the short and long term. It may be that we start off red and we ease into a hybrid plan for all students. And then we jump into a green plan for our elementary students. with them going to school every day, all day by the end of the month. Now, some other considerations we have is for the presentation we had tonight. I know that Amy has done her homework along with Mr. Lyons. Although we may opt to go in that direction if we do so, we are not going to be able to get those purification systems for at least 2 weeks after we place the order. If we're going to have our kindergarten students in the or our K-5 students in the building every day, all day, and if we wait till the end of the month and we decide to start with those K-5 students, that might be a way to get the air purifiers here if we have to go in that direction. Lastly, I will tell you, with all the other data I would like you to consider, listening to the research, listening to our health department, listening to Governor DeWine, listening to the doctor who was on yesterday, and also taking into account that today Lucas County cases did drop. Now, I do know that tomorrow could look differently. It's involving up and down. It's definitely a roller coaster. But with that said, I think it's important that our students at the high school and junior high levels are in a hybrid model. That's the best option for them, for optimal learning. One of the other things I would like to say is, with any model we choose, with any of these selections, I need folks in the community as well as folks around the table to understand that if there is a case, if there is a need to isolate students, we still would have the remote learning opportunity to take place during that time. So if we do have to shut down a wing of a high school or an entire building, we will be able to implement Schoology, which we will be able to continue to go to a remote learning plan. And that's what makes the choice so difficult, ladies and gentlemen, because truly, if you've been watching the news, there's a little bit of everything. Some folks are going to school and there's not a problem. Some schools are opening up within 3 days and they're shutting down. The good thing is we're putting measures in place, regardless to what that looks like for us, that we can continue instruction. So with all of those thoughts to consider, I guess I would like the opportunity to hear your thinking and thoughts in order that we can make an informed decision. Or any questions that you may have that I could share some light on or shed some light on in regards to the model that we think will meet the needs of our community. Because I think what I have really heard and what has resonated and taking in the data and all the information that's out there from the news, our kids need to be in school to some degree for the educational process. We do not want to remain under a remote plan for a lengthy amount of time.
Is the reason you're recommending a hybrid for 6 through 12 because of the space, because we're unable to socially distance?
That's correct.
But we're able to do that in the K-5?
Correct, and thank you for that question. I will say when we were looking to go green earlier in the summer, we measured our classrooms, and we know that we can strive to meet the 3 to 6 foot distance in the classroom. I will be candid, it is closer to 3, and I want to be transparent with that. There are instances in the school where we will be able to practice 6 feet worth of social distancing, and there are other areas where we are not. I will tell you at the high school, some of our class sizes are so large there are 30 students in a class. And our kids are adult size, many of them, and so it is virtually impossible to even maintain even a 3 foot distance carefully and consistently in some of the aspects of the school. Switching classes in the hallway is one big one. Even with half the students in there, it's going to be tight, but it is a step in the right direction, and we have a little more flexibility of where we can use learning spaces. Also, I will tell you, when we've looked at the data, I've looked at the data, I've listened to the governor, and I've done a little research. Right now, cases are growing in that age group more than they are at the elementary level. Cases are growing with our pre-adult students. Some would say their frontal lobe is not quite fully developed, which we know. That doesn't develop until their 20s. And so sometimes their decision making isn't the best, so we still have to continue to help them help themselves and what that looks like in a learning environment. But I will say confidently, when we were looking at initially opening schools under our green plan, we measured classrooms. And do we need to take some additional precautionary steps? Absolutely. Will we have to order some additional PPE? Absolutely. But I know if that's either at the beginning, right after we do 2 weeks of red, or at the end of the month, I'm confident no later than the end of the month that we could go green for our elementary students. But I am open and would like to hear your thoughts and your comfort level as you represent the community. What are your thoughts about going from red to green? Because we can start everybody off hybrid, which may be comfortable for our families as well, and then go to green at the end of the month. But those are some options and some things to consider.
I would say, for me, and I supported the red, but
Yep.
I'm comfortable going green, and I would say with elementary school, because that's an age group that if they're not in school, they're in daycare, going to school 5 days a week means it's more consistent for them. They're just in school as opposed to they're in school now, different kids are in daycare, so you're bringing co-mingling so many other things. So for those kids particularly, I would say probably 5 days is more consistent, as opposed to, okay, your child's at this daycare, yours is at that daycare, and then they're all mingling like that. That is, a lot of.
I mean, it would be difficult to trace those cases
Very
if something were to happen. It would be difficult. The other piece that I will share with you in my thinking that we go green first with our elementary students, and that one is close to my heart, is because it gives our parents some flexibility. If they choose not to send their child to school every day, or the child has some type of, maybe a fever, and you're cautious, at least you know your child is coming back to school in a few days and can still have that contact and make up that work. Again, I know I will be candid with the board members around the table and the community. This is a difficult choice. I'm going to be very transparent and let everyone know we've received a number of emails, phone calls, inundated with communication. And the difficulty is that it feels like it's a very split decision to make. And our folks who are tuning in tonight need to understand, I have received emails that say we should go completely red across the board for 9 weeks. I've heard people who have written into me that have thanked us as a school board that we are starting remote. I have also received emails that have said we should be completely green or completely hybrid. Kids need to be back in school. And the issue is, it's almost like a 49-51. It's like just 2 points.
And tomorrow it could be
different.
Right.
And that's what makes the decision so tough. Because I will say to our community, I don't want you to feel as though this is a win or lose. We are really working as a Board of Education and as educational leaders to make the right decision to keep our kids safe and to educate them at the same time. So we do ask for your patience and grace, and although we may go and choose a direction that you may not feel comfortable with, know that we are stepping cautiously into unknown times and unknown territory. And we have every intention to getting to green as soon as we can. And we are searching measures like you saw tonight. We continue to research measures and different opportunities that will allow us to do that in the safest way. But I do think for our parents, if you think about how a child learns in elementary school, every day is so valuable. It's difficult to learn how to read behind a screen when your attention span, when you're 6 years old, is about 7 minutes. And some folks will say, oh, my kid's in front of a TV a lot, or on a screen a lot. But the cognitive demand that it takes to attend to some activities on a screen is much different than what it is when someone is teaching you and expecting you to respond and engage and apply all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy. That looks a little different, and I want our children to benefit from the expertise of our teachers and their talent. So with that said,
I think also to that point, we're not talking about what does not happen in the spring in terms of the level. And I think
absolutely
getting the children in front of us to be able to assess where the learning is, it's not been a primary topic of the comments that I've received, but it sits in my mind as far as we always have diversity of education and learning within our classrooms. I expect that it's going to be even greater now. Based on what their experiences have been until now.
And thank you, President Donovan Lyle. I will say emphatically it will be a different experience, hybrid or under the remote dynamic. we have purchased, for those of you that may not be aware, we have purchased software called Schoology. I encourage all of our parents to go online, research it, learn more about it. It's a fabulous learning tool that will allow us to really evolve in the way we deliver instruction in a remote learning environment. It's not what we experienced in the spring. In fact, our task force, along with our educational administrators, have really been working hard to make sure we increase the expectations for learning and participation. So even under the remote plan, students are going to be expected to tune in every day. Attendance will be taken, assessments will be given, and direct instruction will be provided. We have rigorous expectations, many of which look like a very typical classroom expectations, because we don't want to repeat what happened in the spring. And quite frankly, our teachers, our principals, really recognize that they have a task before them to close the gap from what students lost in instruction in the spring and address that gap going into the fall.
I guess I have a statement and a question. So I'm in favor of getting, I'm just gonna start with K-5. So I'm in favor of getting them green in 2 weeks. Was it September 14th? I like that idea. But along with that, I do want to have, obviously we'll have it, in-depth discussion about the air purifiers, because I'm not a huge fan of spending money, but if it's another level of protection, and if it's something that is going to be useful and good for the kids long-term after COVID's gone, I definitely want to talk about that a little more. But on, part of going green, and part of my whole thing is, I want to give our community the choice. So if we go green, then parents that want to send their kids have that choice. If we go, but along with that, we need to have a solid virtual remote option, because we also are going to have parents that are not comfortable sending their kids, and I want them to have that choice as well. So I know we talked a little bit about Sala, and maybe that might be looking different. I'd like to have a conversation about how we think that's going to look too.
Absolutely, and I will chime in on that. A couple of things I would like to share is local superintendents, and I might have mentioned this last week or earlier this week when we had a board meeting, are looking for a rubric of some sort that helps all districts decide when they should flip from one level to another. And in speaking with the board member, that's a strong desire, so that we're not just all flipping on a whim because of how we feel or how we think or what the numbers are. What I've come to realize in a discussion I had today is we may not be able to wait on the health department to do that. That may be something that we have to generate in-house for ourselves and our community and take leadership in that area. It may not be perfect, but it's a start, because quite frankly, folks, I will be direct. We may say red for 2 weeks, and if the numbers are high and we're saying we're going to go green in the third week, we might not be able to, based on if our numbers aren't where they need to be. And we are willing, we may have to say, we may have to stay red one more week. We have to. This is fluid. And is that what we want to do? Of course not. But what we can't do is say we're going to be green no matter what, and then cases are going up all around us, and then we have our decisions put us in a predicament that we don't want to be. That could be life-threatening. So either plan that we go with, quite frankly, we're going to be monitoring all the time to see where we are and how we need to proceed. Because quite frankly, when it comes down to it, we're monitoring every day now, but we will need to decide as we get closer to that third week, we're going to be watching the numbers. And we'll have to. And we will come to you with some type of design of rubric and hopefully come to some terms of understanding about what we agree upon when we are going to flip one way or the other. Because the other thing to consider, folks, is what we cannot do to our families and what we cannot do to our children is this week we're red, next week we're green, next week we're yellow or hybrid. We have to have some stability for our children. And so that's something else that we need to develop in this quote-unquote rubric, for lack of better words, of what will be our commitment. Not only can children may adjust, but family lifestyles do not adjust that quickly. I've been asked actually by a couple of folks, well, if we have to flip red or go back to hybrid, what's the time frame? That's something we have to work through. I think it's going to be, parents need, again, trying to make accommodations to watch their children, or accommodations for someone to put their children on the bus if it's coming. So we need to be cognizant of that.
To that point about consistency, then wouldn't it lend itself to start green with the K-5 as opposed to the yellow than the green, especially with the littles and the consistency?
Yes. And I will say, I've spoken to different folks on the board, and I know that there's been some discussion. And I will say, and I do respect that. I know we all may have some similar values and some different values and what we think, but collectively, I know all of us want to do what's best for kids and give parents the most flexibility we can. The one benefit of going green will allow a parent to say, if I don't want to send my child every day and I want to send my child every other day, they can keep their child home. But to your point of Sala, because that is another option. What if I don't want to send my K-5 child every day? That's something we have to revisit. I will tell you, we've had an overwhelming response to Sala, and in all transparency, the response was, it didn't happen all at once. It appears that we had approximately maybe 200 or 300, I shouldn't quote numbers because I don't remember right now. We had a portion of parents that enrolled in Sala initially because they truly had health concerns. Their children had immune system issues. Perhaps they felt that unless there was a vaccine, they did not feel comfortable in returning to school regardless. So we saw the first wave, and I can't remember what those numbers were, but let's say they were 250. Then when we announced that we were going yellow, we had another wave of parents enroll in Sala. And some of that we do ask, why do you want this program? Why does it meet your needs? From my understanding, many people felt unsure of what hybrid was going to look like, so they wanted to make a firm choice to at least have something in place for their kids that they could depend on, because they didn't quite have the picture of what Sala would look like. Or sorry, what hybrid, I stand corrected, what hybrid would look like. So they signed up for Sala. Then we noticed when we announced we were starting the school year red, when the board was kind enough to give me that authorization, because you had not voted on it, you gave me the authorization to make that announcement. Then we saw another wave of parents enroll for Sala. So we really need to revisit Sala and really redesign it in a way that, one, it meets the needs of those families. Two, it's something that's very important that we're able to manage our own change. And three, that we are able to put Sala in place that's going to be an effective model for those folks who sign up for it. And being new, and on day 13, I'm not confident to roll something out like that. Conceptually, we will have something, and I promise the folks, our families, we will have an option. But I know that we also have to look at what that looks like in more detail, because at this juncture, it's a huge undertaking to literally start almost another school. And I'm just not sure if we have that capability with the short amount of time that we have in place. Technically, kids are coming back in a couple of weeks.
Right.
And we need to be able to manage what that looks like.
Is the thought, and I completely agree, I think we need to kind of redesign it a little bit, but is the thought, maybe since we're starting red for 2 weeks, have everybody go red for 2 weeks, and then once we start going green, if people then want to keep their kids home, then they transition to Sala after those 2 weeks?
That is a consideration, because one of the things we also realize that's so vital right now, our kiddos have been out of school not only for the last quarter of the school year, but all summer. And we have some work to do when they come into our school building, however that may look. We need to really spend significant time meeting their social emotional needs. We have to make sure they are comfortable in their learning environment. We want to give them an opportunity to share their thinking, because the way the brain works and the way a brain learns, they have to be in the right mental space in order to even absorb if we want to do academics. So we want to spend some time addressing that. Not all of it, but we do need to spend some time in talking with our children about COVID. We've had children who have lost family members to COVID. We have. and they may want to talk about it. But we also have to teach them about COVID protocols and what that looks like, and social distancing, and, you know, with the new order of masks being for all students K-12, how to wear a mask properly. How do you take a mask break? What does that look like? And right now we need to do some homework on that. There are some recommendations, but we need to help our children learn just those things, and plus have some interactions with other students. So all those things, because if we're going to do this, we need to do it right and be thoughtful and address a well-rounded education. And our kids have been gone for a while, and they need to have some relationships with their teachers. So that's what the first 2 weeks would be. That along with academics, so please know there's a combination. And then if those parents are still adamant about not returning back to school, we will make sure there's a remote learning option for them that will meet their needs.
So, I one thing. So, I know one of the issues with the public, something I think we're all hearing a lot, is just, you know, that we're not giving them specificity. They need specificity and just answers. So what's the timeline that we can get specifics out to our community so that they can make decisions? You know, like, here's what this looks like. Here's, I mean, what are we going to let them know?
Well, and after tonight, after tonight, I will tell you, we will leave here tonight with dates for what the windows will look like for students entering school. We will definitely leave here tonight, but there's steps after that. Parents want to know what that looks like. We need to work with the bus garage to make sure we have those things going. We have some details that we really need to refine. We need to look at staffing. There's so many moving parts. But I would say to a direct answer to your question, I would hope that we would have some type of document ready to go early next week. Because once we move on this, then we are able to create some FAQs. We'll be able to have information out to our teachers, our principals, so they can shoot out information to their families, and we're going to have to do it multiple times.
Well, and I mean, even like with Sal, like, I know if we're
That's the big one.
figuring that,
That's the
I
big
mean,
one.
people need answers to know whether they wanna take that option. Like,
You're
is
right.
it Sylvania teachers? Is it, you know, somebody in Iowa on a video? Like, what does that look like? Because they need to be able to make an informed decision on whether they wanna enroll their child, and we have to give them that information and, you know, sooner. So
And I appreciate that, because what you're saying is that needs to be one of our priorities.
It really
and
is.
you're at the top.
Absolutely. I mean,
And so we can do that.
It's mid-August, like, we need to get
can do that.
people those
And you know-
specific answers so they can make an informed choice on what they wanna choose for their family.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
Okay, but you didn't give me a date.
Yeah, well,
No, I can't give you a date.
And I would say, we can't.
Overpromise, I won't overpromise and underdeliver.
We can't pin you down on that tonight, but maybe like tomorrow, I'm sure there's gonna be an announcement coming out at this meeting, maybe in that announcement, say
Absolutely.
by
They'll be out there.
this date, we'll have
Yeah.
some solid.
Set a deadline, because like that is
Yeah, we're gonna
100%.
like, we're gonna give you this specific
By such date.
information by this date.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean,
That's good.
not everybody
Wait, so do
watches
people
these.
have to enroll again? Like-
Yeah, I think they're gonna
I would
have
think
to
so.
I think so.
again.
Yeah, I don't wanna
Because
commit to
they're
that.
resetting everything, right? So.
That may or may not be
just-
an option. I don't want to get into those details until I have more information, because I will tell you, I have been so focused on these options. I know that I am expecting some analytics, because I do know that we have applications that folks have completed, and I really need to look more closely at the analytics. So I won't, and Shannon, to your question, I won't say yes or no tonight, because I don't want to, again, confuse folks and say this or that. I really am trying to be thoughtful about our communication, and I don't want to have someone say, but you said, and I mean that to our families and our community, because I need to dig down a little deeper into what that looks like and really put my fingers on it. So there's potential that maybe yes, maybe no, but I don't feel comfortable committing to anything in regards to what that may look like right now, and I say that respectfully.
So, I mean, we had, what, was it 900, 1,000 people?
1,000.
So, I mean, to me, like, if we don't find a way to give these 1,000 kids a solid, a fully remote education, I guess I don't understand it. Like, I feel like that was our promise, and I don't really understand what's changed. When we did that initial survey, like 10% of people said they weren't sending their kids back. and 10% of people aren't sending their kids back. Like, we've known for months, so this should have been planned for. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and I'll address that concern, and I appreciate your honesty, because I will share with you, even though our parents did say, or we, in an early survey, which was May-ish, April-ish, and you made me think of something else I'm going to discuss too, but in April or May, doesn't matter, early, under COVID, we did send the survey. And what I think now is we also said should send another survey because we know more about COVID right now than what we did then. And unfortunately, I wasn't here in the district every day.
Mm-hmm.
I know that our task forces worked really hard. There was a solid committee. They have put really pen to paper on what they think it should look like and make recommendations. But I will tell you, not all the recommendations considered all facets of what education looks like in Sylvania. And those recommendations were just that. And I don't want to undermine or underestimate the contribution that those folks did on that committee, because they spent a lot of time, a lot of brain power on coming up with recommendations for solace. So we should have been better prepared, but I will tell you, I've talked to those individuals who are closest to it. They didn't think it was going to be 1,000 and what that 1,000 students would require. At this point, we are approaching a whole new school, which requires administration, which may require some type of support personnel, which may require additional supplies, fundings, the cost factor. It may require how resources are used to check on these students to make sure. Additional staffing is also included. And I don't want to disrespect anyone's work. I think they did the best work possible and didn't realize that, wow, this is much bigger than what we thought. And again, because the enrollments came in waves based on our announcements, if we had 1,000 folks right away that signed up, that resonates different with me than we had, 200 or 300. Then we had an announcement, we got 200 or 300. Then another announcement, and then we get 200 or 300. So I respect what you're saying.
I mean, to me, the only thing that matters is that we said we had a fully remote option. 1,000 people signed up, and we need to give those 1,000 people a fully remote option. Like, that's all that matters, I think. Like, no excuses, and I feel like we did know. We should have been prepared. We knew 10% of people didn't want to send their
Well, and I
kids
think
back.
that will be the benefit of, and I know we have chatted, I think that's the benefit also of doing another survey right now.
Mm-hmm. I
Truly,
just
would like
don't
to
know
do
if
another
it's,
survey to see, is it really 1,000 now if we announce our plan that we're going green? Will those folks
Well,
still
I mean,
say
I
we're a
wouldn't-
remote option?
about that, I honestly think it's foolish to start green because we've already seen that the states that opened up quickly had to go back. And I want my kids to go to school. I'd love them to start school in 2 weeks or in 2 weeks. 2 weeks red. I'd like to see them go in and stay there. You know, I don't, once they get in there, I want them to have the best chance of staying. Also, we keep talking about kids, K to 5. It's not just kids going back in the classroom. It's teachers too, and we're sending teachers in with twice as many kids as they thought initially. And that's, you know, that's a lot different. All of a sudden they're gonna have 25 kids in their class instead of 10 kids in their class. And I'm especially concerned about the 6 to 12, just with the class changes and stuff.
Under the hybrid model?
No, not so much the hybrid, just if we were to go green for 6 to 12, that would concern me. The hybrid doesn't concern me. I think we just need that extra space in those schools are already, I mean, they're very, very crowded when you
So would you be more comfortable and a food for thought for everyone? And I understand your position on green for elementary, but then maybe what we are looking at is hybrid, which we can look at hybrid and then looking at the end of the month. If the numbers are good, we can certainly move toward green, but if the numbers are not, we stay hybrid until we learn otherwise, but with a potential goal to return to green for upper grades as soon as possible. Now, that may or may not be the end of September, but it could be. And if it's doable, I would like to do that, or at least have the opportunity to move in that direction. So our parents are aware. But I do. I respect your position, truly.
And I've been looking at the numbers every day, and Lucas County is doing much better.
They are.
And especially with since the mask order, we peaked about a week after the mask order, and then ever since then we've been going down, which is awesome. That's what the masks are for.
And I think to that point, I actually know that last week it's not a good time to be a runner-up, but we were number 2 out of 88 counties. Lucas County was number 2. And I will say this week, we have dropped to number 5. So we're not a runner-up, we're not even on stage anymore, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, we're moving in the right direction, which is why I don't want to mess it up. You know, like I don't want to let's throw this, good, and we're doing a little bit better, let's throw all the kids in school and then end up back at home. I just, I want my kids to go to school and be able to stay consistent and stay in school.
Duly noted. I do, I respect that.
Okay, sorry.
No.
So no, I'm kind of in the same path. I'd like to see us to green, but I'd like us to pivot a little bit slower. I love the idea, we start off red, then we move into hybrid just to kind of see how it goes. The kids are great for 2 weeks, and we do the K to 5 to green. That way it just gives us a little bit more time. So if we can succeed with the yellow hybrid with K to 5, I'm really comfortable then moving to green, knowing that we've had no issues. And I think it gives us a chance to not mess up.
Yes.
And not do it too quickly where we have to go back to red and then we can't move back to where we want to go. I think it gives us, let's start on red. Parents and kids can learn that digital environment because, especially the high school kids, they're going to be on it 3 days a week with the hybrid plan. It gives us a chance to then go hybrid with the K-5, feel it out, make sure we're doing it safe, make sure we're doing it well with half the kids. Give the teachers a chance to get themselves activated to kids being back, social distancing, teaching kids proper protocol. It's easier to teach 12 kids how to do things than the whole class. Give them 2 weeks to really learn what it's like to make sure that they're safe in this environment, keeping kids in the same classroom, obviously. And then in the 2 weeks, then kids know the protocol, we go green, they know what to do, the teachers know how to clean effectively. I think we're better prepared for success. That's kind of where my brain is, and I feel like we're not putting a pause, we're just moving a little bit slower to make sense of, and if, I just feel like we need a learning curve. We're learning all this stuff as it's happening, and I feel like we go from red to green, it's just too big of a push. That's just kind of where I'm at. I mean, am I opposed to green? No, I think it can be done really well, K to 5, you articulated that already. I'm just more hesitant to, like I said, jump right into green without giving teachers and kids a chance to learn what it's like in this new environment. Because it's going to be different for them. And as kindergartners have to learn how it's going to be different. And for a teacher, if I'm the teacher, I can articulate that better to 12 kids than I can to 24 kids. And then they come back in 2 weeks, September 28th, and they all understand now how they have to kind of be in that classroom. And hopefully we stay in green for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Thank you.
But I have another comment, and that's for the teachers, and that would be a discussion with Dan and the teachers. But I know they haven't seen the kids in a long time, so I'm wondering if we can do traditional open houses. We can get kids and teachers, but I'm wondering if teachers can take the time out to do some FaceTime with all their students, to kind of right before school starts, so that they kind of know who the teacher is, and kind of get a chance to meet someone.
Actually, we are.
Okay.
They're doing
Yeah,
one-on-one.
we're doing like 15-minute meetings, almost like more of an open house setting.
Yeah, because stuff's come out, and I'm seeing that there's going to be some drop-on, drive-bys, and
Yeah.
so I wanted to have, so that's perfect.
Yep. They'll
Could
get
you
to meet
share a
the
little
teachers.
bit more, because I know the public is listening to
Yeah,
it.
the elementaries, and this communication will be out shortly from all building principals, but at the elementary level, we are doing the orientation will be more like an open house setting, 15 minutes for the parents and the students to come in to meet the teacher.
Gotcha.
Obviously,
Perfect.
practice appropriate social distancing, masks, etc. Be an opportunity not only to get their supplies, but also have that interaction with the teacher.
Okay, so
And
as
at
long
the
as
high-
they get out, okay.
and at the high
Perfect.
school level, they're looking at kind of like graduation,
Yeah, that's what I read that.
30-minute increments where a certain amount of kids will be allowed to come in the building, again, practice social distancing, proper safety protocols where they can go around, go through their bell schedule, meet their teachers, pick up supplies. But those are in the works for August 25th to 28th.
Yeah, in high school, they know a lot of teachers already, so it's not as, but for the kindergartens especially, who are
Absolutely.
really coming into a really different environment and being read for 2 weeks, at least, getting a face that's gonna be virtual with them for 2 weeks is great. Going, if we go hybrid for 2 weeks and then green, I think it just puts them at ease, and I think it helps parents kind of get to know the teachers a little bit more. And I think it just, like you said, mentally, emotionally, socially, I think it's just gonna be a benefit. Thanks, Tim. I knew there was some stuff, but I wasn't quite sure how that's doing.
And see, I guess I mean, I understand what you guys are saying, I sort of agree, but then I go back to, we're asking for a lot of transitions, and transitions are difficult. So we're saying, hey, do red, learn this, now we want you to learn hybrid, and now we want you to learn green. And I know we all want to stay green like that, that's the goal. But again, I'm not, like, for families, the consistency for, they have to be able to plan, daycare, where their kids are, even for teachers. And I think our teachers can handle the new way, even with a full class. I kind of think the hybrid might be, and I'm not a teacher and I hate speaking for them, but just in my head, I'm thinking if I had to do that, I'm teaching kids all day long, and then I still have to take care of the ones that are home remotely, and that's what they're doing, 5 days a week, like that. I mean, I think I said this when we first talked about the hybrid. I was very concerned about the burden on teachers having to juggle the kids in their classroom, the kids at home, like, that's a lot. And, again, and I'll go back to these kids that are gonna be in daycare, okay, so they're in school half the time, and then they're all in different daycares. So
I mean, a
they're
lot
all-
of kids are not gonna be in daycare, they're gonna be home.
But a lot of parents work, Shannon, there's a lot.
No, but how many daycares are there, I'm saying? Like,
Oh, but now they've opened up.
Yeah, they've opened them up,
to
they've opened the daycares
preschools,
up,
daycare.
bring them in, I mean.
no, I know, but they were already filled up before.
No, they've expanded them, they had them limited by ratio of teachers to kids, and now that was expanded 2 or 3 weeks ago by the governor to bring them back to capacity that they were at before.
That's what I'm saying, they were already full before, it's not like daycares were open before this, or I mean, it's not like daycares were empty before this all started. I mean, my brother was on a waiting list for a daycare.
Oh,
He took
sure.
it. They
But
were
that-
already full, I'm not,
That to me.
there are, I
That's
mean, there are
even
more
even
daycares.
more of a reason, because parents, are hurting economically and need to get back to work. And if we're having them stay home, when we fully intend for them to be green, and I'm not sure what the difference is. Like, we're sending them to school,
No, because there's gonna be half the kids, it's half the chances of people being infected.
Well, yeah, but I think there's a difference with elementary school kids and high school kids, because high school kids are moving class to class. In elementary school, you're in the same classroom all day, so there's not that much.
I'm not concerned about kids being infected, I'm concerned about teachers being infected when there are 20, 25 kids in an 800 square feet of space as opposed to 10 kids in square feet. I think our numbers are gonna keep going down.
Yeah,
But
I
if
hope
we
so.
throw all our kids in school all of a sudden, they could go way up, and then,
Okay, so
and then parents have to
I-
figure out
I
what to
hear-
do
So, and
all the time.
so help me with this. So,
Mhm.
and I'm worried about the teachers too. Like, I'm greatly worried about all of our teachers and the situation that they're gonna be in, and I know it's scary. But, okay, so if we're saying we're putting teachers more at risk because there's 20 kids in a classroom, and if there were 10, they're less at risk. Well, if one of those 10 has COVID, you're still at risk.
No,
I
but-
don't care if there's if one of those kids have COVID, whether it's 10 in the room or 20 or 25, you're at risk.
But
'cause
you're
that kid
only
has COVID.
seeing that kid every other day instead. When you have like more kids in a space, the viral load could, it's more air circulation, everything.
Well, I'm not
I
sure
mean,
that's
that's
true
why we
because-
can't have more than a certain number, we can't have more than 10 people in this room. Because,
Yeah, and if I could, may I don't mean any
Yeah.
disrespect. I think what I would like to share and enlighten, here's my thinking. I think, and maybe this will resolve the issue, because, or not really the issue, but the concern on both halves. I personally would like to recommend that we do a remote start, and for K-5, we go green. And here's the other caveat to that. If we have parents who truly feel uncomfortable and want to do an alternative option because green does not speak to them, then that's where Sala would have to be a priority for those parents at that grade level. There are parents who can't go to work right now because they're concerned about hybrid being days of the week and trying to get childcare. And really, to your point, Shannon, in a way, some childcare is available, but in some cases, childcare is not available. And so what are those parents supposed to do if there isn't a childcare facility for them to go to?
So I've actually offered several people for me to watch their kids, and everyone's like, no, we're all set. Even though they tell me that's the reason they can't go back. You know, they're like, I need somebody to watch my kids. I offer to watch their kids. No, actually, I have somebody. So it's a little frustrating.
Yeah, that's good to know though, because we want our families to have that option. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this truly to everyone. We know that going green, there is an inherent risk factor. There is.
But we're also talking a month from now.
Correct.
Right? You're saying
Correct.
not green
There's an
until.
Correct. We have 4.
There's an inherent risk factor when we send them to school, whether it's
You're correct.
yellow or green. We are taking a risk.
Correct,
So-
because they're coming to school every day and we don't know where they are the
Going
other
to
days.
school.
So at this point, I would like to make a recommendation for the board, and truly, I understand the different views and perspectives that are here, and that's why you're a Board of Education. So I would like to make a recommendation, unless there's further conversation, but I do know we have other agenda items, and I know people are anxiously awaiting to see what we are going to do so that we can move on with additional plans to really wrap our heads around and address some of the concerns that parents have. And for those parents who say, yeah, you're going on green, I'm still not doing it, how do we incorporate an option in Sala for that and give them that benefit? Because if it is Sala or a version of Sala that's designed for that, you know, schools are still open and they may start with Sala and figure out it's not for me and they want to jump right back in. So I think we need to be flexible for our parents. I think that's what they're asking. It's
And for them to make
flexibility.
the decision.
Yeah.
So if your recommendation is green by September 14th, parents should know right away what their Sala options are. Because if that's our date, they need to get into that program ASAP then. Because if we're saying September 14th is green, we're gonna do everything we can to keep kids in the classroom safe and whatnot. Parents are still gonna say, no, thank you.
Absolutely.
I want to green. So I think we need that
Yeah,
sooner
that's our
than later.
priority.
Because if that's our date, the other 2 weeks hybrid gives us a chance to, but if you're saying, hey, we're going green September 14th, we have to respect those other parents, and
Absolutely.
they need to have a choice right away to say, listen, I respect the fact that you're going September 14th, I want my kids by September 14th, I want them in a completely online program.
And I agree, and that does have to be our
Yeah,
number
I
one
mean,
priority.
otherwise, and if we do that, I'm okay with that, but
Okay.
we can't wait till September 12th
No.
and say,
Oh my gosh.
it's gotta
You
be,
know, we
have to set a
right,
deadline.
it's gotta be, they have to know where they're
It's gotta be before
going.
like September 1st.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
that's-
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think, yeah.
It's gonna be like next week.
Next.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I was
if,
thinking.
because if we're making that commitment to green, those parents have to know what they're doing with their kids.
Right. But I think
So-
we get a commitment that if that's the direction that the board decides to go, that we can have a date certain by which the Sala structure will be
Yes.
available.
Yes, I think we can move forward on that. Don't you think, Mr. Zero?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think one thing that should be mentioned is the structure of Sala. We'll need to work with SEA in order to have an MOU for that. Just want
Well,
to make sure that,
that was actually my question, so.
Lots of moving parts.
Has anyone, have you talked to Dan or, you know, any of SEA about this, you know, going green, like, because last we communicated with them, and I knew it was red. Have they been communicated? Do we have their thoughts on this?
We do not. Not at this
It's
point
kind
in
of
time.
an important piece. maybe,
Yeah.
but-
Well, and this is what I'm hoping to do. We had a hybrid MOU. We've had a red MOU. We have discussed what Sala can look like. We have discussed in regards to reassigning teachers to make Sala happen and how we can do that and the needs of our parents. I think, and I'm hopeful that the combination of those 2 MOUs will land us in a spot where we are good to go with green, because I do know early on, we were good with green. When we were good with green back in June.
Well,
and
we never
July.
voted on green, did we?
We set our goal. We
I mean, that
we
was,
did
I
not vote.
don't,
I will say we did not
We
vote
didn't vote, yeah.
because it was returning back to school as normal.
We haven't voted on any.
Yeah, we have not
No,
voted.
we did vote on yellow to move forward with yellow at some point. We did, there was a,
No, I think we just.
we did.
I think the
saw
task
that
force
MOU.
submitted it, but I don't
Yeah,
see
I think we
it.
voted on
But
it.
then
Yeah.
we didn't, we tabled it.
it wasn't the MOU, like we voted to, I thought we voted to
Yeah.
proceed with yellow.
You could-
The task force did, they went
I
from
don't know if I
green,
remember.
then they went to
I
yellow,
don't recall, but,
and then they turned, but I don't remember the vote.
I truly
No, it
don't
doesn't
know.
matter.
Because like the last time we met
I
before
guess-
August was in the middle of July, I think that was like the second week of July, we had a meeting. So that would have even predated the yellow submitting to the,
we were green. I know I was still in SEL. I think it was maybe my first or second board meeting in April or early May. And so we sent a statement out that our goal was to go green. And we were moving all forward with green till probably the July 14th.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
You know the
Zeroff.
Yeah.
Because we were just going to go back to school as normal through July 14th. That's what I recall.
Yeah, I don't recall her voting,
But listen, I was working in 2 districts, I'm gonna tell you. It was, the last couple of months have been blurry. I've been to a lot of
okay.
meetings.
July 28th, subject, yellow plan for 2020 to 2021 restart. Yes, Vicky, Julie, Shannon, Bruce, Lon, Craig. We voted.
Okay.
and then obviously we gave approval for red last week for
No,
her
we
twin
have not
house.
voted on red.
Not a vote,
We just gave
authorization
authorization.
individually.
Yeah, we
To
didn't.
start school right.
Okay, but that, I mean, approval is we voted.
Well, we're gonna vote tonight, I think.
Yeah.
I
I
guess-
think that's the goal, is to vote tonight on what we're doing.
Correct.
So here's a couple things, like I've been talking about childcare forever, so I'm really frustrated that we don't have a childcare plan. Like that was from the get-go, like I've been talking childcare, and I have not seen one childcare plan.
I know that Mr. Lyons has, I think, what is her name, Claire?
Claire
I
Proctor?
think she has reached out to you about some potential options. I don't know where that is, but I do know we have had some level of communication with her. But I don't know the details, because I know
But
they
it's
reached out. And
August,
I'm new
like,
to this, is
I
that
mean,
the
we-
community?
Yeah.
I'm new.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to learn a little bit more about that.
Shannon, are you referring to like the ET program and things like that, or are you talking
Well,
a bigger picture than that?
Bigger picture,
Okay,
like
that's
from
okay.
the
Maybe I'm-
beginning,
okay.
like
It's not like that, okay.
like I was like, why don't we use our cafeteria and our lunchroom and every, for off days for kids, they can be in there and have people, we can repurpose some of our workers to be with the kids and do their remote work with them. And there's just never been a plan for that, so it's frustrating that now we're gonna push all the kids in school because we didn't prepare and have a childcare plan.
That's not why I would push, that's not my basis for why I recommend.
I would like to know why, because the health department recommended red, we all agreed, and like all of a sudden we're going green, and I don't understand where it's coming from.
Well, I think it's an individual decision for every single person at this table on how they want to proceed. For me, it was listening to the the pediatricians, and Governor DeMine's press conference on Tuesday. Based on hearing that and hearing the specific questions that were directed that way, for me, the comfortability, talking with Dr. Motley about our ability to social distance, we meet the 5 criteria as pointed out, the ventilation, in addition to mask, social distancing, rigorous hand washing, and cleaning of surfaces. So for me, my personal opinion is we can safely return our K-5 kids in green. And I feel like the sooner they're back from our IV life, from the board perspective, we have to give kids the opportunity to be educated. And the ideal circumstance is in a classroom, not remotely, not hybrid.
So what is our plan if we lose a teacher and we went against our health department? Like, what is our plan then? I mean, do we need any legal, is there any legal
I think there's
issues with?
waivers that will be signed.
Yes,
So our
we are
teachers will have to sign waivers?
That's something we have to explore, and we need to
Okay.
explore more further. Or the other piece is, I will tell you, when I sought some legal counsel, they suggested starting off red. They have not advised a timeline whatsoever. And I think that's the one thing that I need to reiterate. We may start off red, and in a month, we may find out we still have to do a 3rd week. We may have to. The numbers may be that we need to at least start with something so our families and our parents know where to begin. Because if the numbers spike back up and we're purple and we're under a stay-at-home order, we're not going green.
I guess I don't even understand why we're saying we're gonna be green. Why, I don't understand why we don't just establish some parameters and, okay, if we're yellow, if our county is yellow, we'll be green. If our county is orange, we'll be hybrid. I don't understand why we don't
Yeah.
tie it to something like that
I think
instead
that's
of
what I was
saying.
referring to as the rubric that we
I know,
need
but
to
that's not
develop.
what we're voting on is like, we're gonna go
Right.
green no matter what,
Right.
which doesn't really make sense to me.
And I understand that because I think what you're saying is let's develop that and then develop a course of where we want to go.
Yeah, it just seems like everything's really backward.
And I would say to that point, with the number of parents who have reached out, we need to provide some level of structure, some decision so that they know what's coming and so that they have an opportunity to make a choice for their child. And we need to look at what that is, and based on that, we do need to have some type of criteria of what that looks like, because quite frankly, we're gonna need that criteria probably by, September 14th. Because our kids won't be able to go before, you're right, the week before, because we may find, we have not had a decline in cases. So here's one of the criteria that some folks are using across the nation. And I might have heard, in partnership with Lucas County Health Department, there was some measure they were using that you had to see a decline in cases, or at least not an uptick, for 10 days, and some states are using 14 days. That may be something we want to look at before we say we're going to move to another level. It may be 10 days that we need to see a decline, but we need to have those conversations and set some parameters of what is our date. So right now, even if we looked at 10 days, that date could actually be really starting next week, starting this week, starting Monday, and starting to look at what those numbers are. You also have to pick a date and time, or a day and time in which to look at those numbers, because right now, they're going like this every day.
I mean, I'd be fine to pick a date to look at them and then determine on that day or leading into that day. I just don't think it makes any sense to say we're gonna be green when we have no idea what we're gonna be looking. I mean, that can be a goal, that's our goal the whole year is to be green. But it just doesn't make sense like to vote to say we're gonna be green on this date, but we don't really know if we're gonna be green.
Well, I'm not sure you're saying that. I think you're saying that our goal is to go back on the 14th, but if the numbers aren't there.
If the numbers aren't there,
Yeah, so
then
that's,
we're gonna have to.
and that's, I think, is what makes me, like, I'm still, my first option is,
You're still cautious.
Yes.
You're still cautious.
But,
I guess I don't understand why we're wording it this way if that's not, if we
Because
don't
we
know
have-
that's what we're gonna do.
Weren't you saying, like, if I understood, like, we're gonna get parameters, these are the reasons, so parents can know specifically, like, these are the things that are gonna trigger us to change.
We have to develop that.
Yeah, that we have to develop that, but, I mean, people want specific answers, and, I mean, I think she laid out a really good plan for, K-5, let's try it, I think it's the safest way to do it, and if the numbers switch, if we get to September 7th, September 10th, and the numbers are spiking, then
We might not be able
we're
to do
gonna
it.
have to pivot.
Yeah.
Back to red.
And I would think
or-
our parents would want us to do that.
Yeah,
I don't think our
they're
parents are gonna say send them anyway.
I don't think parents are gonna say send our kids in if it's a dangerous situation.
And part two of that is if parents, we need to look at solid. And if parents truly feel uncomfortable with that, and hence why I said we need to revisit it. Because if this is the way we go, and we're able to go in this direction, we know we're gonna have to do something for elementary parents to be the priority because they may not feel safe. And that's why we need to really revisit solid. And we have some work to do. Now, the good thing is our teachers and administrators worked hard with solid. The plans are detailed. There's a lot of information there. We're not starting over from scratch. But we can say to our community, because we are going green, solid for elementary will be our first priority because we need to give those parents a choice. Then we may need to look at the medical piece. But what we cannot do is not provide parents with a choice.
Well, and I'd really like to see us incorporate for teachers that are uncomfortable going back in the classroom, and they can be doing that remote learning. Because I would really like to see Sylvania kids being taught by Sylvania teachers, and I'm certain we're going to have teachers that are not comfortable going back in the classroom right now. So I'd like to see them with that option of being able to be
I
the
agree.
remote teachers, because,
I mean, did we do that already, or
no.
how have we not found out what teachers want to be in the classroom?
I
and-
thought, we do that, make those the.
No, I'm just saying, like, have we
Yeah, I can't
asked,
say
like,
that.
what teachers have health conditions that preclude them from being
Yes.
in a
Do
classroom?
we have that
We have some
information?
of that information.
Yes.
I
I
just,
want to say, and just for clarification, it's my understanding, and I can be corrected, so Mr. Lyons, please feel free if I misspeak. My understanding, communication went out to all staff maybe 2 or maybe 3 weeks ago.
It's been a while.
It's been a-
SEA sent a separate one, and OPSI sent one to their folks.
And then we also sent one out that
Okay.
shared with teachers or all employees, if you have a concern about your health, if you have the child care option that you would like to exercise, if you have someone that you take care of that may be vulnerable, these are the steps that you need to follow. And one of the steps is actually, the first step, I believe, is reaching out to our HR office, set an appointment to talk through those steps and those options. And I do know that went out. Am I correct?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
yeah.
Okay.
In the MOU, I don't recall if it was the yellow or the red, I think we also contemplated another opportunity to retire for those
Yes,
teachers
we
who get
did.
out of
Yes.
retirement in June or in
Yes.
February. The
Absolutely.
opportunity,
If they felt they'd rather retire than to put themselves in the classroom, they have that option.
so I think we're trying to continue to leave as much flexibility as we can with regard to this. I'd like to make a motion that we return K-5 green on the date of September 14th. Return our 6 to 12 hybrid on that same date. And do you have a recommendation for 6 to 12 beyond the hybrid?
Not at this point in
Not at this
time.
point, with the understanding that all of this is fluid.
Correct.
That if something
Correct.
happens where we have to change course, we shall. And also understanding that a rubric has to be in place with parameters that everybody will understand,
Correct.
shared with the community, shared with the staff, developed with the staff, so they understand what the obligations, responsibilities, and expectations are. And to your point, Julie, I mean, about, talking with Dan about how this all looks, but it's gotta start somewhere. And for me, I think, it's very clear, community needs to know.
And we're out of time.
Right.
It's the middle of August.
Yes.
This is ridiculous. Like, we need a plan. We need to start putting in place and go forward. So I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Yes.
Good.
So if we are, and I'm okay with the dates, I think we need dates to just kind of have those, as long as, like you said, Veronica, we're fluid in making modifications.
Yeah, we
because
have to.
that makes me more comfortable, because if we have those dates as, that's the dates, then it makes me really uncomfortable, like you said, if we can pivot if we need to. Not that I want to, but, I mean, we have to.
But understanding we may have to if
Right.
the cases are such.
And I think families should at some point soon get a clear plan of what the green will look like. What will the kids be actually experiencing in the classroom when they show up on September 14th, hopefully. What is it gonna look like? How are they getting off the bus? How are they getting carpooled? Where are they going? How are they going to transition to that safe space that's the classroom? How is lunch gonna be done in the classroom? How are all those things? How are they gonna go to the bathroom? I think we need to make sure parents are okay with that and comfortable, because if not, then we have to have that red plan ASAP. Because they need to then be able to, respect to them, be able to pivot right away and say, I appreciate you doing that, it's not for me. And I think that's, to me, I'm okay with that as long as we have those other things in place. Because we have to, it has to be done.
Agreed. And please know, I will execute and make sure those things happen. In addition to, I do feel the need to do another survey to our parents. Again, it won't be complex. I think the one important thing about surveys is whatever you ask, you have to be prepared to respond to. So we also need to take another survey, and that will be another data point for us to go from each household and hear their thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, I think that's important.
It's
Because
always
I said,
there.
we can't lose those parents that are just not comfortable. They have to know, the sooner the better. And some of them already know. I mean, some of them already know, hey, listen, it's red.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Yeah, and
whatever's
that's fine,
going on
and
in their home,
that's respected, and
they need to choose.
they need to start setting those plans right now, the same way parents are gonna start to set their plans for green, willing that we're able to do that effectively.
Just had one clarification. So, okay, so the motion is September 4th, we start remote, September 14th, K-5 goes green, and September 14th, 6-12 goes hybrid. And then 6-12 stays hybrid for an undetermined period of time?
At this juncture, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
So which option are we voting on?
It's kind of A without the last one,
Well,
I think.
It's
So
actually
it's kind of
C.
B.
Well,
It's B.
It's C.
It's C.
Wait.
It's
No,
C.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
it's
No,
B.
it's not.
No,
It's
it's
B.
B.
It's
It's
B. I have it circled.
It's B.
So then I just want to make a comment, we didn't really talk about the hybrid plan, and I just want to make a comment, and I'm not taking credit for this, this was my wife's idea, that I know there was some talk about continuous learning on the hybrid, so go AA, PB, AA, PB, so it'd be like, Monday would be, or Monday, Tuesday, AA, Wednesday, Thursday, BB, and then Friday would be A. Or she thinks, and I agree with her. Just for consistency's sake, I think we should do Monday, Tuesday A, Wednesday, Thursday B, and then still keep that Friday remote day. I love the idea of getting continuous education, but I think from a scheduling standpoint for parents, because if your kid's going to school Monday,
I missed it. Say
go
what you-
Monday, Tuesdays A, group
Yeah.
A.
That's what we are.
It's what we're already doing.
Oh, okay.
But I think there was maybe some talk about eliminating that Friday remote day.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear
That
that.
was an
either.
option.
Yeah, that was
It
on the-
it
that was
one
on
of
the
the plans.
plan.
I think it was on one of the
Yeah,
plans.
yeah.
But yeah, I
We're
just,
going back to the Friday.
okay, all right.
Okay.
And then the last comment I want to make is, and I understand we have to be flexible. Like things could change, the situation could change. We might have to pivot. I totally get that, and I'm on board with that. I want it to be a mindset of we're gonna go green September 14th unless ABC happens. Not we're gonna look at ABC first and then decide to go green. So I think it's a mindset.
Yeah, I think that's what we're saying, like, we're
Okay.
gonna come up with parameters where
Right.
we're gonna know what's gonna trigger
Right.
the change, so that we're not always guessing. You know?
Right, no, I
Parents aren't
100%
guessing, it's
agree.
like, okay, if the numbers are this, then this happens.
I just want it to be we're going green unless this happens, and not we're waiting for this to happen to go green.
I mean, I'm fine with moving forward, but I don't understand why we would vote if we don't know what the parameters are. Like, we don't have any details, like, it doesn't make sense to me to vote on it.
Well, I think we have to vote because parents need to know.
We need to,
And it's the middle of August, and we have to, we have to communicate with specificity. So, no, they're not gonna know the parameters that are gonna make us switch to hybrid, but they're gonna know, right now they're green, and in a week or so, we're gonna know what would trigger us back.
Well, I would wanna know as a parent, like, are we still gonna go green if the county's still red? Like, or are we gonna go green if the county's purple? Like, there's no,
I think that's what Greg's saying, is we're going green unless, and then we will set those.
I know, but there's
parameters.
nothing,
Well,
but you're saying you're gonna put you're gonna put this out to the community, but we don't have any details yet.
But I think we're saying, I mean, the county's red right now, and we're saying we're going green. I mean, the
So
county-
you're going green even if the county's red?
K-5, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
unless those numbers go up and deaths rise and, you know, yes.
And I really need to preface this. Folks, we're still 4 weeks away.
Mhm.
right.
We're 4 weeks away. To be candid, we will have every intention of working and putting our efforts, and that's one of the reasons why we need to set a plan so we can put our efforts and
Yeah.
resources in a focused direction. Because with all due respect to everyone and those who may be listening, we've been so trying to adjust to what the health department says and adjust to what the governor has said. And I'm really trying to combine all of those pieces and give our parents choice. But we are also 4 weeks away. We're quite frankly, and to your point, Shannon, if we're purple and we're under stay-at-home orders, we're gonna be red.
Right.
We won't
I
have
mean,
a choice.
but there's nothing right now that
No,
tells me
it
that.
isn't.
Like, I have no.
And I can own some of that because I've been here 14 days.
No, I know, and I don't.
13 days.
I mean,
can own some of that.
I am not blaming you, Dr. Motley,
Oh, I
for
know
any
that.
of this.
But it
Like,
is my
this
responsibility
is,
as
in my
superintendent.
opinion, this is our failure. And I'm frustrated because, as the board, I think it was our obligation back in March to come up with a plan for an overview for what needed to be done, and we never did that. And I asked to do that, and I was denied that. And I really think this is our fault, and I think somebody needs to take a responsibility for why it's August and we don't even know what we're doing yet. It's ridiculous.
And you know what, we can all sit here and say we should have done better.
But we need to take responsibility.
Okay.
Nobody's taking
We can all
responsibility.
take responsibility, but that doesn't alleviate us from the responsibility right now on August, whatever it is, 13th, to say, here's the plan, because we can't say, oh, we missed it in the past, so wait, we need more time to plan. It's the middle of August, so
I know, but
whatever we screwed up, we have to, try to mitigate that damage now and give people a plan.
And if I may also say, Shannon, I hear your point and what you are saying, and truly, I would like to say that I do want to, I wasn't here, and as a new superintendent, I know the district was going through a transition, and this came out of nowhere in the beginning of like this summer, and really, I think for a while, because we were so comfortable thinking that we were going to go back green, we didn't think we had to have these conversations because our goal was set on green.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really felt, I think, and I was working in 2 districts, and I could tell our vibe was all about, you know what, we're going to try and go green, we're going to go green. So we didn't have to do a lot of late work because all we really had to do was be concerned about PPE because we were going to go green.
And we were green
Up
until a month ago.
But where did that even come from? We never sat down as a board and said we wanted to be green like that.
I agree with you, we didn't do
We
it.
never said that. I don't know where it came from. All these decisions were made without us.
Well, I think they were being made in the task force, and
Well, they were never relayed to us.
that's true. I will agree with you on that. That communication wasn't great. We didn't get that information. You and I have talked about it several times. We felt very out of the loop. We didn't know what was going on. We were trying to stay in our lane. You were right about all that, okay? But that doesn't stop us. Like, here's where we are today. So today, like, we can say, hey, like, does all of us as a board, or you guys on the task force, or you, whoever, take responsibility, but we still have to give people a plan right now moving forward.
I get it. I mean, I understand, and I think I just feel like the community is owed an apology because I think this is really bad.
Okay, I will apologize. I am sorry that it's the middle of August and this is when you're getting your plan. It's not acceptable. It's wrong. I mean, I said it earlier. So I'll apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I want to give them a plan right now.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, I understand what you're saying, but I do feel like giving them a plan now, we are trying to take responsibility, we're trying to fix it, we're trying to let them know what's going on, that's my feeling.
Okay, I mean, I don't like this plan, but we need a plan, so I'll vote for this plan, but it's not my favorite, and, we need to watch it though. We can't be irresponsible and contribute to the pandemic by our actions.
I don't think anybody's.
100%.
No.
I agree with that. I don't want to contribute. I don't know what the right answer is. I know we have to get a plan. I think she's making a very good argument for why we should do this. I trust her as a leader. I'm so pleased that she's here to lead us through this now. We have a strong leader, and our strong leader is saying 13 days in, here's what I want to do. I trust that.
Then I will get on board. But I just want to say thank you to Dr. Motley, and thank you to everybody, because this has been a really, really bad experience for everybody, and this is a terrible way to start a job, but.
Well,
I also apologize for our edit to all the people who have emailed me who I have not answered, because I have 500 emails.
We have hundreds
And
and
I
hundreds
do
and
full-time jobs, and I do a lot, so it's I'm overwhelmed and I can't do it.
Yeah.
So,
But
sorry
I will
about
say,
that too.
I think
I
the
haven't
people by and large who emailed us have understood and appreciated. They want the answers, we're getting them tonight. We have this job, this is the second time we've met this week, we met twice last week. No excuses, this is our job, but I want to address the issues about getting here, because I think one of the things that is not stated is a month ago we were green. Where that started with in green was because our educators and our administrators said that's the best place for kids to learn is green. So that's the task force, that was the goal of the task force, to get the kids back in school. They can be back in school, that's where they need to be. And it's only been a confluence of circumstances beyond our control these last 4 weeks that have caused a pivot.
I mean, I will disagree with you in the beginning, there should have been a red, yellow, and green plan. It doesn't make any sense to me that we only worked on one plan at a time. They should have all been done at the same time, which is why I wanted to talk about it in March.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I've said this 10 times, probably 100 times, but they were worked on. And
Okay,
I replied to a parent today, a former teacher and a parent today, or a parent, grandparent, where starting back in June, we had subcommittees that worked on red, green, yellow, and orange plans. We had preliminary plans and feedback in place. We didn't have MOUs in place, but we worked with, you guys all board approved them, we worked with over 70 teachers to get their feedback and recommendations for those plans. So I take offense when I hear we didn't do anything all summer, because that's not the case.
Oh, no, I didn't say you didn't do anything
And
all
that's,
summer.
maybe that's just how I'm taking it.
I said it sounds like one plan was worked on at a time.
That was not the
Oh, no.
case at all. We were working on MOUs for those plans to specify what the parameters were and things we had put in place. But for anybody to say that, and I don't care about me, but for a numerous amount of administrators and teachers who worked on these plans from June, where all that information was given on June 29th at the board meeting at Southview. And at the very top of that presentation, it said, our goal is to move forward with our green plan. Whether that was voted on or not, I'm not sure. I know it wasn't, but that was the goal coming from the subcommittee work and the administration that we presented to the board. So I just want to make that clear that we didn't just sit back
I didn't.
all summer. And I'm not
That's not
attacking
what
you.
I meant at all, Tim.
Okay.
Like here's how it was presented to us. Like, we have a green plan. Oh no, we're not green now. We're gonna have to come up with yellow plan. That's how it was presented. Like,
No,
it wasn't presented to us as we just need to switch to our yellow plan. It was presented as we don't have a yellow
No,
plan yet.
and I get that, and I think that was a lack of communication that happened. We had them. We had preliminary plans where MOUs needed to be finalized on, but all of them were ready to go.
Okay, we just were never given a plan, so it
Gotcha.
was like,
And
I
you wouldn't be
didn't know
given
we
the
had
plans
plans.
until they were voted on once the MOU process was
Mhm.
completed. And it hadn't got to that point, but we're ready to we could do an MOU for green and red and yellow tomorrow. And we started that process. And I'm not attacking you, but I just get frustrated when I hear that. And I think that's the perception and the communication that's happened is we don't have any plans lined up. When we had preliminary plans, just didn't have the MOUs, the finalization of things.
And I think one way to say that, and I have two things, and then I'll let us proceed. I think the confusion is, we had an overarching plan, we had an umbrella, and it was our restart reopening plan. And underneath that plan, then we had all these things under that were being worked on all at the same time. And I believe in my presentation, we shared about how we had came up with a green, and here's a yellow, and here's this, and I did the PowerPoint. Now, and I think it was shared electronically, but it was one very comprehensive plan, and what has happened is we have moved through every level of those plans, and thank goodness we had the work done, because we would be starting today by scratch. And my last comment, and I do promise, my last comment is, I want to make sure that our public also understands that, in my thinking, we are following the direction of the health department, because we may have some people saying, oh, you're going against the health department. I don't know who, I'm just putting it out there. We are starting off school remote, and that's what the health department's recommendation was. We are starting remote. The health department did make other suggestions, but we are starting remote.
You're right, that's a good point.
And I want folks to know that. And we are not going against their recommendation. But what we are choosing to do as a district, to recognize that when we start remote, we want to pivot as quickly as possible. And we want to pivot on this date. Recognizing that the week before that date, we may still be in remote if we see a spike. But we are following the health department's recommendations on starting remote. And what we're actually trying to do is kind of take ownership of our own destiny and decide, is it time to pivot? And again, we know some of that stuff has to be developed. We own that. But that's where the rubber's going to meet the road, because then we can decide, because it may be 3 weeks of red. I don't know. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping we see 14 days of going down and we're number 67 out of 88.
I mean, I think we're on the way
But
there.
I did want to
really
make that point for the record, so I apologize.
No, I'm really sorry, Tim. I mean, I know you have worked really, really hard, and I mean nothing by that. You know, I think it's a lot of miscommunication, and
it's just a perception.
we just don't have the information.
I think the other thing is, too, quite candidly, to your point about the health department, when you're having contrasting recommendations by the American Academy for Pediatrics, when you have CDC, you've got various governmental agencies bringing in, so I appreciate all the work you did to develop the opportunity for us to consider, because I think that the message I heard very clearly was, leave it to the locals to decide. So, I believe we have a motion and a second on the floor, unless I'm mistaken. Correct?
We do.
Seemed like it was a little bit ago, but I just want to make sure if there's any other comments or questions, and if there aren't, then we'll call the roll.
Vicky Donovan Lyle,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky,
Yes.
Bruce Lonswitsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for your just healthy discussion and all the thoughts that you shared. I greatly appreciate it. We can move on to item 5.1. The first item is an agreement that is an annual action. I recommend approval of the Ohio Health Youth Environment Survey. This survey actually is something that was already signed by our interim superintendent, but it's a survey, let me make sure I don't want to misspeak here, that actually is designed to measure the health risk, behaviors, and environmental factors that impact youth, health, and safety. So I'm asking for, oh, can you? Oh,
Yeah, it's
great,
actually,
thank
I'm
you,
sorry,
Jim.
it's actually an agreement with Ohio University, where we've already done the Ohio Yes surveys. We did them 2 years ago and then 4 years prior, but it's an agreement with Ohio University, just a confidentiality agreement. They won't be violating FERPA or HIPAA laws, but what they do is they analyze and break down that information from those surveys and give that information back to us. We just have to sign it to make sure we're on the same page with them, as well as their signature with that confidentiality.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zero.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Comments or questions?
Question. So Tim, is this done once a year by our students, I'm assuming?
No, it's random. We did it in 2015, 16,
Oh, I
and then
stand corrected. I
we did it again
apologize.
from 2018 and 19. So it's not every year, it's not every other year, just we get notified when
Oh, I
they
see.
want
So it's just whenever they want to collect the data. Okay.
I did something like this in school.
Yeah.
Like we did something when I was in high school.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
I don't
Long
remember.
time ago.
So-
So we have a motion and second. Any other questions?
No.
If you'll call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Vicky Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky,
Yes.
Bruce Lonswitsky,
Yes.
Item 5.2, I'm recommending that we move forward is an agreement with Buckeye Broadband, new to the area. I did this with another company. And it is for a school free net program partnership that is designed to support our classrooms and our students. This program utilizes free-net product while also allowing our classrooms and our teachers and families to access the internet more freely. And it provides free-net service at basic speeds for our students and our families. So I am also recommending the approval of this as well.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
That's great.
Yeah.
Very
It
good.
is
That's so nice
That's
of them.
awesome.
Is this did we use this in the spring or?
You know-
No, it's new. That's really cool. Great.
Yeah,
So,
really,
just-
I love this.
Lisa, do you have any other details on this?
Yeah,
I can
it's-
defer to you.
Yes,
I
it's
may have
$50, and the district will pick up that cost, and then the student will have, or the family will have access to internet throughout the year, and then, we'll be able to use the broadband, if we get approved, the broadband grant to get this. So.
That's great.
And actually, Cheryl O'Shea worked on this and applied for the grant, I just wanted to
Thank
give
her
her
for
credit.
it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that,
Great.
that's fabulous.
Right.
And we'll want to make sure that we get that communication out very specifically and
Absolutely.
intentionally, so community understands.
We will highlight that immediately.
And
and
other
we're
weeks
gonna-
we'll send it out too. with
Absolutely.
our newsletters.
It's for the economically disadvantaged families, so
Sure.
there'll be communication for that.
Quick question, Lisa. Do they enroll themselves or do they enroll through the school?
They enroll, you know what, I think it says on there, I don't want to misspeak.
Okay. But as long as they know how to get access, yeah.
I think we are the liaison,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. We connect the
End user
families.
design.
Thought I just read the end user applies and the school
Yeah.
the school's invoiced.
Yes, I think we connect the families to broadband.
We're the conduit.
Gotcha. Okay, so you'll be, okay, so they,
Yeah.
yeah, as long as they know that to see the school to get that service.
you'll call the roll, please?
Vicki Donovan-Lyle,
Yes.
Bruce Wonsolewski,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Shannon Saferski,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Item 5.3, we are recommending approval of two policies for first read, one of which is policy number 3220, which is based on the standards-based teacher evaluation, and policy 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in district programs or activities. I will note that item 226, that policy is a brand new policy. And I believe item 3220, Mr. Zero, were you the one, if you could help me here, for the teacher evaluation?
Yeah, it's just the policy in the language for the OTES that we're using, the Ohio Teacher Evaluation System.
Perfect.
Is there-
Approval.
Sorry.
Approval.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Is there, are there any stipulations about, if we're not, our evaluation's gonna work the same, whether we're in class, in school or not?
Ironically, we were supposed to have an OTES
Okay.
committee meeting yesterday. Was that today?
I think it was yesterday.
But
Yesterday
there are,
or today, we had to
there are
cancel.
some waivers and
Okay.
provisions and things that we're gonna look to probably take advantage of.
Okay.
Yeah, and Shannon, this actually covers OTES 2.0, which is the next
Oh, yeah.
version.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the stipulations from the ODE is that we have to have a new policy adopted. However, we're allowed to stay on 1.0. And so with all this transition and everything, the OTES committee has met several times and is in agreement that we'd like to stay on 1.0 this next year.
Okay.
But this policy still has to be
Okay.
approved by I think September 1, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, if you'll call the roll, please?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Shannon Saferski,
Yes.
Vicki Donovan-Lyle,
Yes.
Bruce Wonsolewski,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we are with you, Keith?
Yes, thank you. Just one item tonight. I'd like the board to consider item 6.2 on the license side, which covers some Schoology training for extra duty.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any comments or questions? You'll call the roll, please?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Vicki Donovan-Lyle,
Yes.
Bruce Wonsolewski,
Yes.
and Shannon Saferski.
Yes.
And I received a text from Amy that there is another teacher who would like to participate beyond what was stated already with regard to RIFs for public participation. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then if there's any other items before we adjourn into executive session.
Hello?
Ashley?
Yes.
Hi, this is Vicki Lyle calling from the Sylvania Board of Education.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, and you?
Good.
Okay, understand you'd like the opportunity to participate, so we have the second opportunity. If you could state your name and address for the record and share your comments with the board, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, my name is Ashley Hunt, and my address is 3148 Elmont Road, Toledo, Ohio, 43615. I live in the township. So first off, I just wanted to ask, really interested in speaking with you. I've had hives for like hours. I wanted to call because I just felt like teacher input needed to be heard. I just wanted to start by saying that I absolutely love Sylvania schools. I attended as a student. I played volleyball at Northview. I coached at the schools, and now I teach for the schools. I intend nothing else but to provide you with a respectful teacher point of view. I prepared quite a bit of a statement, so please bear with me. I think the confusion needs to be noted. We're all being told different things, and I feel that it's contributing to the public's upset, which is in turn affecting our students. We were told that tomorrow afternoon we would be notified if we're being displaced due to the recent thrift. It's being said in the meeting that cuts are on pause and no one has been ripped yet. We understand that nothing is official until the board approves it, but teachers have received formal risk letters that go into their personal files, and new teachers are being told that they could be bumped due to these risks. It's also our interpretation that no one is technically ripped yet, but because these teachers are being given a chance to bump to the lower seniority, those are the teachers that will officially be ripped. I think many of us fear that saying we are on a pause right now is just giving time for us to come tomorrow and be told that we are being displaced in the afternoon, because that's what we have been told. We are all working on what we were told last, which is that the 40-something teachers are going to have their position eliminated. They have the option tomorrow morning to bump others with lower seniority, for then those teachers to be officially ripped. I don't want to say that this feels misleading to the public or to the board, but it's just not what teachers are being told, and it's not coming across that way. We fear that all that's happening is the RIF process is being pushed out longer, which is giving us less time to prepare and thus affecting how we service our students. If RIFs are on a pause, what does that mean for us? Are we going to prepare over the next several days and then find out in a few days next week that we're going to be ripped? We feel as though we are being told one thing while the board is being told another. I think we all just feel confused. I'm just not really sure what else to say, other than that if this isn't clarified soon, teachers are going to be even more stressed and anxious than they were before. I sincerely hope that this pause is actually a stop, and that this mental damage and stress that has been caused is done. I think we sincerely just want to be able to focus on our students and how we are going to provide the best possible digital platform for them. In the past several days, we have been unable to do that. Is it safe to say that our AMP, intervention, and new hire teachers will be returning to full-time positions and can begin preparing for their students because of this pause? Will they be given letters retracting their risk notices? And if it's not safe for them to prepare, it's been talked about how quickly it's wanted for elementary kids to return first to school. How do you see the remaining teachers servicing all these students to the best of their ability with 44 less teachers in our building? We return to work tomorrow and a pause just isn't enough. We need to stop and we need answers.
Okay, we have our superintendent would like to reply.
Thank you, Ms. President Donovan Lyle. I appreciate you taking the time as a Sylvania teacher to share your thoughts, feelings, and concerns in regards to the reduction of force or staff reductions. You may have missed it, and I know it's been a very emotional day and a very busy day for many, but at this point in time, those reductions are not going to take place. Based on the vote of the board tonight with how we are structured to move forward, I will tell you tomorrow, I know it's supposed to be your first day to work. I want you to go back to your building where you teach before you receive your RIF letter, and please start the school year off with every intention to being in your current position. More than likely, more information will be coming from not only our administrators, but SEA leadership. But at this point in time, I know an email did go out, but I understand your concern, but at this point, we have pressed pause on all RIFs. So I hope that brings you some comfort and some peace of mind as we start the school year tomorrow.
Ashley? Hello?
Lou?
Oh, no.
Well,
Well, it's like here.
I hope she's
Well,
watching, Ashley.
Somebody is.
Somebody will let Ashley know
Ashley?
that there is a
Yes.
stop.
oh,
Did you hear that?
Yes, I did, and you know, I mean, it does help a bit. It's hard, I think, as teachers, because, you know, we're being told to pause and we're not being told to stop. So it's kind of just like we all wonder how long this pause is going to last.
and Ashley, I will tell you, I could not say officially stop yet, but I'll just say for right now, stop. How's that?
How's that?
Does that help?
Stop.
I think that will make a lot of teachers feel a lot better.
If
Everybody
we had a
say
recorder, it would be ended,
Stop.
it's not just being held,
And
so.
quite frankly, Ashley, it's because we have a plan in place, and for the majority of those folks, really, we're gonna need all of our teachers in the classrooms, because we now have a plan in place that has put that motion underway, so stay tuned.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you
Thank
too.
you. Bye, Ashley.
Thanks for calling in. Or we called you, but thanks. So before we go into executive session, because I just peeked at the calendar, because we've seen a lot of each other the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it looks like we're not slated to be together again officially until the 24th. So I don't know if this is the appropriate time or if there's a desire by the board while we have our resources available to us to talk about the air purifiers, or if we're all done with that conversation. I'm putting it out there because it was presented to us tonight. We've now made a plan that, depending on how life is, could be enacted, green and hybrid. So, and not to say we can't revisit it, this is not meant to be like only now and never, but while we have, and thank you again, not just for the presentation, but for staying. If there's any questions anybody has, if anybody wants to have any discussion about the air purifiers. And so I'm just leaving that open because we're not supposed to be together again for another 11 days, which feels like a lifetime.
I thought we were planning a meeting, I got my calendar.
This is open.
Can I just ask you candidly,
Please.
with your expertise, would your recommendation be these are something we should invest in? Whether it's for COVID or whether it's just simply it's things we can use post to meet the needs of our students and their health risks better. I mean, just as somebody that is in the medical field, is this something we should spend the money on to really be more proactive?
So I appreciate your question, and my answer comes from a medical,
Sure.
again, you know, I disclaimer, from a personal and medical perspective. So our family specifically, extended family, I've seen over the years since I was a child what it looks like to have a family member experience an autoimmune disease, a disease caused by exposure to things, and what that looks like lifelong. I've seen what's happening right now being in the healthcare setting. And when we went back, and it's apples to oranges, when COVID moved in, we met, like you were all meeting, made plans and executed those plans. And to be able to do our jobs safely, having the PPE, having the things on our end, which it looks different, but are similar as well, made for a very successful and safer feeling environment, and we are able to do our jobs better. So, and when you spend money on something, you want to have it, in my opinion, and we're a budget family, you want to have rationale for when you spend that money. And in our family, health and safety we've always put it as a priority, and obviously health and safety is your priority as well. So when you look at these, in my opinion, they're not, as Mr. Lime said, a novelty. They're not something that's only good for one thing for a short time. They're something that can be comprehensively protective. They're something that is certainly supported in the literature on multiple angles. They're supported specifically for schools under that Harvard document. So when you're looking at support from a specific angle in the literature, I think it fits all that criteria. So I think it would make sense from so many angles for so many reasons, from a health perspective, from peace of mind, to the capacity what it can do. Like we've used the words, it's not a magic bullet. We know that for COVID, but is it a layer of protection? It can be. I would say yes, it is. So I mean, in my professional opinion, I would say yes. I think it would be a very, very wise decision that could help multiple things for multiple families, from the school level all the way down to the health of their children for lifelong. Because the ramifications of the things that we are all exposed to every day, will tell you, I promise you, it's supported, they affect people lifelong. So this is a huge opportunity to impact the health of your staff and your students for their entire lives. I think it's a huge opportunity. I really do. So to answer your question, that would be yes.
I just want to say, my feeling, especially if we're going to go K-5 green, and I understand Shannon's concerns about, going green, and yeah, there's concerns. We're in a worldwide pandemic. I feel like I want to protect everybody as much as possible. I don't want to spend money any more than anybody else. I don't like spending money if we don't have to, but I do feel like these are it's an added layer of protection. Masks are a layer of protection, hand washing is a layer of protection. I do feel like this is an added layer of protection. And I do feel like, once COVID is gone, these will be useful they're still useful for our kids.
And that's kind of where I'm at too. I want to make sure there's life to these beyond just, now, and I'm like you, even though you guys already know where I was, I did like the hybrid, it just makes me internally more comfortable knowing that these are in the classroom. I hate to be that blunt, but I think the fact that we're going green right away, there is that unknown. I mean, like I said, the 2-week buffer to me on hybrid was that buffer. So I guess I'm with you. I think just having these for the kids and for the staff, and I think your presentation was great. The fact that it said it could get these impurities out of the air, and if they do get sick, it may mitigate how sick they get. So I think that to me is kind of those things there. Yes, we can certainly, if there is exposure, maybe the exposure is not as severe, or maybe it's very, very mild. And I think to me, those kind of things are maybe worth the investment to keep everyone safe. So I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at on that. It just,
And I also don't know if you noticed, like on the last couple pages of the presentation, there were some funding ideas, which I thought were, there were some good ideas in there. So if we can get, even part of it funded.
Yeah.
and I think we could.
I'm on board with it.
Yeah, I saw those, and I think those are very viable options.
Yeah.
I would also like everyone to know that, and I appreciate you coming in and sharing, Amy. I told you that several times already. I think one of the things that we have done as well is we've already done our due diligence. I know there has been contact with the company out of New York, that we've already also did some vetting and asked some additional questions, because of course Amy doesn't know how many classrooms we have in the square footage. So I want everyone to know who's listening that we are indeed doing our due diligence as well. And not only that, if this is nothing else but another layer of a precautionary step that could potentially make a difference, and it will ease the minds and hearts of some of our parents, I think it's a valuable idea. And number two, and someone said it earlier, maybe it's just because we have concerns about our buildings and the air ventilation that is currently there, and potentially to address those issues would be much more costly. This may be a semi-Band-Aid until we can get probably the millions of dollars that it will take to outfit our buildings again. But if it can address the long-term issues that we've had with this product, it might be a worthy step to take. And it's something. And especially with, I know we have a lot of children that have childhood asthma and other issues. If this will help them, the typical child, not even COVID, but beyond COVID, it's something I think we should continue to explore.
Well, I guess the purpose of talking about it tonight is also if there is a desire and support of the board, if we want to move forward and we're not meeting till the 24th and we're talking about bringing kids back, working back the timeline, the sooner, if there is a desire of the board to do that, the sooner we're ordering the better. Because then we're assuring to the best of our ability to get them in the classroom before anybody steps foot out.
Let's definitely start with K-5.
Do we have money for this?
Yeah, that's what's this question.
Yes.
Because you said we had
We're the board if we say buy, so you have
Yeah, they
to.
say, this would be permanent improvement, Lisa, because, or would it be general?
We would have to use general fund money only because you've seen the home improvement list, so we would have to use general fund money.
I just think, and hopefully September 14th, we are green. I think it gives us a better chance to stay on green.
Gives us a month to get them here.
And once we go green, if we get those in the classrooms, maybe kids aren't getting sick, teachers aren't getting sick, maybe we're able to stay on green the rest of the year and maybe even the whole spring. I just feel like, yeah, it's expensive and yeah, it sucks that we have to do that, but I feel like, if it keeps kids healthy and it keeps teachers healthy, I think it's one of those investments that if I was a parent of my kids are high schoolers, I'm not as concerned, although I am concerned. If I had kids who were in kindergarten first, I think this would be just another layer that would keep me more, I guess, sane.
Yeah.
So maybe more prone to say, okay, I feel comfortable sending you to school.
I think
That's
the
kind of where I'm at.
comfortability factor increases for everybody.
It's psychological. I mean, if you feel psychologically more safe, I think.
Because their website kind of showed like dental offices and there's other areas that are specifically using them for the same purpose that we're proposing to use for the safety of their patients or people coming through their door.
Is there any COVID money that we can use for this?
So we did receive some COVID money, but we've spent it like 10 times over. So,
That's good.
yeah, it's.
I mean, just, is it gonna hurt anything else to pull this much money out. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want it, I just wanna know where the money's coming
I
from.
wonder if we can do
Yeah, and
some
we
kind
get
of
back to the
fundraiser.
general fund.
I wonder if we can reach out to maybe like the families, yeah, maybe some.
I mean, if you go to local businesses or whatever, I think you could raise.
Okay,
For,
yeah, we can look it under.
for something like this, that is for the safety of our children, I really think we can raise
Yeah.
some money for stuff.
Okay.
Can we make a motion, since it wasn't on the agenda?
Can we add it?
I don't think we need to.
We don't need to.
Oh, we don't need to
Okay.
vote on it? Okay,
Just watch your blessing.
Okay.
you were so blessed.
So then we will have, so we asked about the numbers, and I know that we didn't definitively say classrooms plus common spaces and those kind of things. Does anybody need any more information other than what we already have to move forward to put these in every space?
Can we have one in here?
Because we don't meet again till the 24th, at least unless we have a reason to.
So in my figures, this building was not included in
Okay.
those numbers, just to be clear.
That's
It
fine.
was truly
That's fine.
classrooms and kids, and, yeah, I think the only one that may have been included is the lab over at support services maybe was included.
And you said like gyms and cafeterias weren't included, because I don't necessarily think.
Well,
we
our
need
kids
it
are
in
gonna
there.
be in those spaces for now.
Right, I don't think we need it in there, just where
I
kids
think
are
it's just
gonna
where
be for
kids
a
are gonna
extended period
be.
of time.
Where they're going to
Spaces,
be
yeah,
and stay.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so everybody good? We'll proceed with the ordering. Thank you, because it was a very powerful presentation, not just as it relates to COVID, but as it relates to of everyone who's passing through the doors of our building.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And so with that, I will make a motion that we enter executive session for the purpose of.
Consideration of employment of a public employee.
Second. Just call the roll, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deanna
Thank
Lyle.
you.
Yes.
Lily Hoffman.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Bruce Wonsowski.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
And no action will be taken upon our adjournment.